Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here on another summer's day. You may hear my fan in the background because it's hot outside, it's hot inside, and we've got hot wrestling talk. Everyone's doing stupid shit, and we're going to talk all about it today. I'm your host, the great Brian Last, and here he is, the star of the Drive Thru. I'm going really fast here to start. I just realized the star of the Drive Thru, Mr. Jim Cornette.
First of all, I'm not even sure that I'm all that friendly today. And second of all, yeah, you sound like Tony Khan. The f***, 100 miles an hour there. Blah, 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 blah.
I didn't say great. I made sense.
Well, yeah, I think friend is your great. Or great is his friend. Or learning would be your friend. Or what the fuck ever.
All right, thank you, great friend.
Brian, I'm an older man now. I'm an older gentleman than I used to be. Many of us around the world are older now than we were previously before in our earlier life. It's funny how it works out that way. But I'll tell you that I don't know, unless I know we have listeners all over the world, around this fine globe, the panorama of human experience, but unless you're in Beirut, in the middle of a revolution or something, I don't know if you could have had a more stressful, hectic week than I've had. They're conspiring, Mother Nature, that old biddy, and the various gods of these things are conspiring to see how much sleep the old man can lose here and how much stress can go on the old ticker, the old palpitator. And I think I've about got there. You may push me over the edge today.
Me?
I'll either flatline or cuss you out, one or the other.
What did I do? I have nothing to do with anything.
Not yet, you haven't.
Not yet. I'm never, ever causing problems.
Well, there's a lot
You
of
get all the
things
heat.
A lot of things have happened to me this week that have never fucking happened. And I'll tell you, so just real briefly, Monday, I take Harley over to the vet for her fluids treatment that she has now for her condition. And then I come back and I drop her off and I go over to the drugstore and I pick up some prescriptions for Stacy's mom because as in our continuing updates, she did have her surgical procedure on Monday and is feeling great and everything went well. And so that's a good thing. And we got her home Monday evening and just in time to have a late dinner. And then they were calling Brian for severe storms all over our area, from southern and western Indiana all the way through eastern Kentucky, the whole kit and caboodle. And they said it's going to happen overnight. So you know me, I stay up and I watch the weather on the television and the radar and the warnings and whatever. And they had plenty of warnings out. And they did have bad weather, but other places, we didn't get dick all of nothing here at the castle on Monday night, but I was up until 4:30, 4:45 in the morning. So I didn't get a lot of sleep that night. So Tuesday, I'm trying to catch up on everything around here. And we got another wave of severe storms on Tuesday afternoon that we have to watch. And it pours rain and the wind blew, but it was nothing alarming. A lot of thunder and lightning. And there's the front that was parked over the Western Plains or that whole gaga. I admit every day this is going to happen this week, right? Same thing. So Tuesday night, I get a good night's sleep, but Stacy and her mother don't, because young Harley picks this day to come down with an allergy attack, is what the vet called it, when I had her back over there Wednesday morning, where she coughed all night, poor little thing, trying to get phlegm out of her throat. But whereas, Harley is a cute little Pomeranian. And even her bark sounds like, music, like Beethoven's symphony. Just, it's melodic, right? She's just the cutest little thing. When she was coughing, it was deep and hoarse and guttural and loud, and it sounded like an Alaskan Malamute. And then she'd go, and that all night long. So because Stacy's mother is, so she doesn't have to deal with all of our stairs. She's staying in the back room, not the back room. It's not like a storage unit, but the room in the back of the house.
We got her in the shed in the back. What the
hell?
hell?
Now, come on now. No, the Monroes still haven't moved out of that shed, but no, it's in the back room where she doesn't have to go up and down stairs, and Stacy's staying out there with her, so if she needs something, run to the kitchen, whatever the case. And Harley likes to be with Stacy, so she's spending the night down there, and she coughs all night, keeps him up. So Wednesday morning, I take her over to the vet, and they say, oh, yes, we're going to get the allergy medicine and give her the dropper full of the blah, 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 but they look down her throat and listen to her little chest, and that's what it was. And by the way, and she's feeling better now that we've gotten this addressed. But anyway, so then I take her back from the vet, and then I grab Stacy and take her over to her back doctor because she's got another one of the shots they give her, the treatment for the spinal stenosis. And then I bring her back home, and then I also stop on the way and get Harley's medicine at that point, and then get back home in time for another round of storms where the thunder and the lightning and the pouring rain and the late afternoon and the blah, blah, blah. And we get finished with that. And then comes Thursday, and they say, okay, after today, all of this bad weather's going to be out. It's just going to be hot, but we're not going to have rain and storms and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, well, so far, what I've looked at and what they've, forecast, it hasn't been that bad. And now they're not really forecasting anything all really bad. So we're just going to buzz right through this, right? Well, Thursday, and I'm thinking, by the way, because I kept Harley with me Wednesday night, I didn't really sleep Wednesday night all night, so that way at least they could get some sleep, but the poor little baby's cough barking kept me up. So I'm there Wednesday. I'm going to turn in early. I'm going to get a good night's sleep, have a nice dinner, and, just conk out right after these storms are over with. And so it starts thundering, and it starts lightning, and it does the things and then all of a sudden the wind started blowing and the rain started coming down sideways, and then the wind started blowing harder, and then I'm looking at TV like, where are you people cutting in telling us we're about to blow away, right? They got the little graphic on the bottom of the screen of Judge Judy. And all of a sudden, shit started falling from the skies. And the main attraction was a 100-foot tall poplar tree in my backyard down near the creek that has been there longer than I have, that turned over completely out of the ground. And the root system is 15 feet or more up in the air now as this thing is laying on its side. It's almost halfway across the entire backyard. It's got to be 100 feet. I haven't got a tape measure that big. And then I'm looking around, and remember I've said I had the tree people come and clean everything up, and from all the previous storms, cut away all the dead wood, haul off all stick, do the wood chipper. The yard was immaculate. It looks like somebody took a helicopter load full of leaves and branches and just flew over and just dropped them like leaflets over fucking Hiroshima. And then I go out front, and I believe I've mentioned before the architectural wonder that is this old, wizened old maple tree that has withstood every storm we've had here for like 100 years. And it's got a cute little dogwood growing underneath it that just spreads out because it's going out toward the light. And it's right next to my other ash tree that's over at the end of the house. And you got to bend under the leaves, Brian. When you walk under the canopy and you get under there and you can watch the squirrels and it's all nice and shady. Well, a big old limb breaks out of that maple tree and falls on the dogwood. I still don't know what we're going to have to cut down and what we ain't. And our power went out for about 3 hours. I was going to call you on my cell phone and say, well, we may have a problem because the last storm that we had where we had no power for almost 3 days was not as bad as this. But anyway, so after all that happened, Then I got up this morning and took Stace over for her dental surgery, and then came back and then went back to the drugstore to pick up her prescriptions. And now I'm speaking to you, which is like having an appointment for a root canal at the dentist.
Oh.
And at least I'm becoming a medical expert.
With the gas?
What do you mean with the gas?
With the nitrous oxide?
Oh, I thought you were talking about flatulence.
No, oh, that's everything you say here on the show. But no, in terms of me being like root canal with nitrous oxide or without?
Well, actually, the nitrous oxide they give you, they must be getting some generic shit, because I've never noticed the overwhelming urge to just laugh out loud. That's what they call it, right? The laughing gas.
Laughing gas, yeah.
Well, whenever I've been in a dentist's office, I've never had the urge to laugh out loud when they were doing anything to me.
Well, what about like the prep time or whatever you would call the lead in to the guy working on you?
Did you say prick time?
I said prep time. The prep time. Where, like, you know, you have the gas on for a few minutes before the guy starts doing anything, so you get to just have some fun and ride the roller coaster that is.
No, I'm sitting there going, what the fuck is this shit? This shit's nothing. It's chapping my nostrils.
I used to have a really conservative dentist. He used to call it the sweet air. I always knew I was fucked if he recommended, like, I think you need some sweet air for this. I'm like, oh boy, he's going to make me hurt.
Well, but if he was conservative, what is he, dribbling it out, or is he turning that shit up? See, I want to fill up like a fucking balloon and float across the ceiling. If you're going to give me the gas,
while the dentist is working on you?
Well, he can hold me down. He can sit straddle of me while I'm in the chair.
You want your dentist to straddle you while you're in the chair, feeling like you're floating up?
Yes. Doesn't everybody do it that way?
Like Bob Cottle's microphone, as Howard Baum once put
it.
He's trying to hold it. He always looks like he's trying to hold it down. It's made of helium. It's floating.
but no, every time I go to the dentist, it's the same procedure. Where, you know, he doesn't give me the nitrous because I said it doesn't affect me. He gives me something different. I can't remember what he calls it, but boy, I take a nap and I wake up and he'll be zipping up his pants and straightening his shirt and preparing my bill. Like always. Nothing out of the ordinary.
All right. Well, we're not going to do it, but that would have been a wonderful transition to another segment about a dentist we have to do today. But back to Happy Talk.
Well, that's all I got. I'm fucking miserable. I'm at my wit's end. I'm stressed out. I'm going to spend another $6,000 or $7,000 probably to get this fucking giant 18-wheeler size goddamn tree cut up and hauled out of my backyard, and a crater the size of Cleveland filled in. And then all of the work that we've been doing for the last 3 months to straighten everything up can be done all over again. I have a feeling of frustration, Brian. So now that's a segue into the wrestling.
It certainly is. And like I said, we have several things to talk about. We're going to do a review of Dynamite. We're going to talk about one thing on Raw. And as we're recording, a lot of different things happening.
Oh, yeah. And don't anybody out there get your fucking panties all in a bunch that we're only going to talk about one thing on Raw, because I didn't have 3 hours to watch Raw this week. What, we're trying to get my medical degree and you know, hide under cover from the wrath of Mother Nature and the Norse gods of thunder. So fuck Raw for this week is what I had to say, except for Punk and Drew. Because Punk and Drew we'll go out of our way to watch. We will dangle from a precipice by our fingertips to watch those guys.
Well, on that topic, why don't we start there, the beginning of the week, Monday Night Raw. That segment specifically, they opened the show. You mentioned Punk and Drew, but there was a third party in there. A man who decided the way to get over was to wear women's clothing. I don't know what to say anymore about Seth Rollins, but...
He looks like if Miss Marple was a referee, with the bun in his hair and the blousey... Yes, what were you going to say?
It's like he listened to a bunch of Harry Styles records and had access to my grandmother's closet. I don't know what the fuck he's doing out there.
But yours was better than mine, by the way.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm a revolutionary.
And I don't even know who Harry Styles is.
I'm a revolutionary. I'm a visionary. What was the revolution? You went into your wife's closet and put on her shirt? Like, what the fuck?
No, it was the French Revolution.
Is that what it was?
That's what, now we know what
puffiness.
revolution he served in. He was the lieutenant of puffy shirts.
Kramer's girlfriend was onto something. She was just ahead of her time. The puffy shirt look. You needed a star to debut it on TV. Jerry Seinfeld kind of killed it. Now you got Franklin Rollins.
But now they've added stripes. I think that's the whole difference.
That's the whole difference. But anyway, it was his promo, and then he basically just said he's there to have the other guys talk. But I'll let you explain this.
Well, he was there to have the other guys talk, and then he talked a fucking lot. But the thing, this was the first 25 minutes of the show, and to be honest, if everybody, I wouldn't mind 3 hours of nothing but talking if everybody was as good as, well, I'll say Punk and Drew and Seth in some instances when he's motivated and a little bit more serious. This time, I think he was really trying to work on something here. But anyway, he came out, did Seth Franklin Rollins in his referee shirt with the puffy sleeves and the zebra boots and a blah blah blah, and again the hair in the bun, and he would make a wonderful fucking pie brand like old Grandma Proctor's baked apple pies if the picture was of him instead of old Grandma Proctor.
Yeah, okay.
Have you ever had a Grandma Proctor pie?
I haven't. The bearded weirdo, you think is the brand they should go with?
Well, now that you mention it, well, no, weirdo's already taken by the Republican Party these days. But nevertheless, so he calls for these two morons to come out. And suddenly you hear the strains of like Mussolini. They came to see Punk walk around the ring on TV.
Oh, yeah, strain was the right word.
Well, that's the strains of the music. That's an inside music industry term. You wouldn't.
Oh, no, of course not. Excuse me, Gershwin.
No, well, I'll just stick with me, kid, and I'll make sure you got you're all up with all the hep lingo. Anyway, he goes around the ring, he shakes his hands, he shakes the fans' hands, but he takes his time, and he gets the response, and blah, blah, blah. And also, they got 3 hours. What the fuck? This is going to be the best thing on it. And then when Drew comes out, he's got heat. And it's what we were talking about on the last show. We did the last review of this thing. Each one of these guys has perfect reasons within the program not to like each other. Babyface or heel, it doesn't matter because a couple of them have been both. And so it's all worked out that way, but they all got history. And it's a perfect three-way type of thing for something like this where everybody's on a comparable level. Everybody can talk and hold their end up. And everybody's got a legitimate issue. So if this was, can you imagine if we didn't ever see three ways? And then they started this and had a three-way. Unfortunately, they've been prostituted, but they don't mean as much as they used to anymore. But still, when you get something like this, you don't go with it. Anyway, and the rule is that Punk and Drew can't touch each other or him, or the SummerSlam match is off, so Punk bails out to the announce desk, so he's not scared of them. He's worried about what he's going to do. And, Seth's fucking standpoint is that he's going to be in charge. He doesn't have to be the referee. He can walk out too, but he wants to see him fight. And then Drew gets again into his whole thing where he's so smarmy and snarky and said he's trying to turn Seth on Punk. He's the real enemy. And, Seth's response is, well, you're an idiot, but we both hate Punk, but I hate you as much as Punk does. So blah, blah, blah. There's only one rule in the match. Seth says, you two guys are going to listen to everything I say. I'm the boss. And he gets very flippant. And then I thought that's when he was, if he really hates Drew that bad and Punk that bad, could he be a little more not over the top Jack Nicholson, Seth Rollins? What do you think?
I thought that tone that he set from the beginning was that over-the-top Rollins that he had kind of, for a little bit, for some of the serious stuff that he's been involved with Cody and various things, he takes it down a notch and it works a little better.
Yeah.
But here he's as flamboyant as he's ever been.
Flamboyant, you think of Liberace. Do you really think Seth?
I think of him when he first gets in the ring and he gets on the mic and he starts, "I'm a revolution."
Well, no, that's not flamboyance. That's more like fucking loss of oxygen to the brain, isn't it?
Flatulence, maybe. I don't
Flatulence. Know. And then Punk, he's not really happy about Seth being the referee because he said to him, he said, "You being a referee to me is a hat on a hat." And now, I like the way that this young man turns a phrase. We got to remember that one.
I agree with him. I said it last week. We don't need this referee.
But he tells Seth, one thing I don't want is I don't want any help from you under any circumstances. And then Drew tells Punk, well, you better worry about me, and compares Punk to Charles Manson. Again, Drew is tremendous. Where has this guy been all our lives? Under Vince McMahon's creative umbrella, I guess.
And also doing things with people he didn't have a legitimate history with. I think this is more than just Vince isn't there holding him back or making him do wacky things and taking his sword out of the stone or whatever the fuck was happening there with that. I think this is also that there's a real history between these two. And because of that, it brings out more real feeling.
Well, they went back and forth some more, and Punk said that Drew continuously dumbs himself out of position. And he fired up at him, and I've got heart. I got the people chanting my name. What do you got? And then Drew holds up Punk's bracelet. And they go nose to nose, and they're trash talking each other, but you can't hear it. It's not on mic, at least. And then they play the music and out they go because they can't fight each other, or elsewise the match would be off, and that would just be not good. But they go from this again, 25 minutes with 3 main event guys. Everybody's listening to everything. Everybody's reacting to everything that they're supposed to react to. And then they go from that to the Judgment Day clubhouse where Liv Morgan has vandalized their video games. And as well, it's a good time for me to go to another doctor's office. And that's where I turned Raw off. But
Liv must have been on the weed.
Well, she must have been on something. One way or another, she's grumpy. I'll tell you that. But they're up here, and then they go, and then it becomes Saved by the Bell again. But would you say Punk and Drew is the real SummerSlam main event? Because all due respect to Cody and Solo, I think people are looking forward to that to see if Roman's coming back, whereas people
see, that's the thing.
Are looking forward to Punk and Drew because Punk and Drew are in it and Seth is the referee.
I think Punk and Drew is the match people most want to see. I think the drama and story of the bloodline developing is the incident or story they want to see the most.
Yes. And they're going to have to watch Cody wrestle Solo to get there. But maybe he'll wrestle so high instead of so low.
Oh boy.
So high you can't get over, so low you can't get, so wide you can't get around. One nation under a groove.
All right. Well,
just for the funk of it.
Again, I don't know if you've got that groove, and I don't know if One Nation would be under your groove, but that was Raw, ladies and gentlemen. And on the topic of WWE, Jim, did you see this past week? A lot of the listeners were sending it in like we wouldn't see it. Jesse Ventura at Raw backstage. Triple H greets him upon arrival. There's video of him with Punk. Punk did an interview where he said, Jesse said that, I think I knew if Punk went back, then it's safe for me to go back or something like that. What are your thoughts on Jesse Ventura being welcomed back into the fold of WWE, being open to being welcomed back into the fold now that Vince isn't there. And again, Jesse Ventura back where, a lot of people first discovered him and fell in love with wrestling with him doing the color commentary in WWE.
Well, I mean, and he also said in these many words that Jesse did that he's back because Vince is gone. And now he felt like that it was, it was a new organization that he could speak to, apparently. And with Triple H, again, Jesse Ventura was dealing with Vince McMahon almost 15 years before Triple H met either one of them. So, he didn't have the heat with Triple H himself. It was head guy to head guy. And I think also with Punk, it's the same thing that he said. With Vince gone, it felt like a different place, different thing. And so I'm sure they had a interesting discussion about all the many reasons why that Vince was fucking poison to him. But Ventura makes a ton of sense because of he was the voice of that era, the last boom that they had before the Attitude Era, the 80s, and they could make a ton of money on merchandising and all the various things. And they were in St. Paul, so it didn't hurt. I think, Ventura lives in Mexico or somewhere now, doesn't he? Or has he moved back?
I believe he still lives in Mexico now, but I think he does plenty of things in the United States.
Well, yeah, but St. Paul, he was probably visiting the in-laws or some kind of shit. The old Minnesota gang.
I was just looking for the truth.
Yeah, it's out there somewhere. So I would think it's not like they flew him in. If they'd have flown him in to have a big official meeting, they probably would have brought him to Stamford and gone to the office. But if he came to the show there, where they could all sit down because he was in town, that makes sense. But anyway, yes, with the...
I want to talk about MI5's involvement in the disappearance of Moondog King.
Poor Sailor White gets none of the gratitude he deserves. But what I'm trying to say is, Jesse, yes, with the new organization, they're making billions upon billions of dollars. You know that they can do all kinds of shit with the retro figures and or the merchandising again. Wouldn't it be funny if they made a bunch of money for everybody, Ventura and the company and everything else, on some type of best of something of Jesse, when that was the bone of contention that first got sideways between he and Vince, was his royalties that he didn't get and had to sue for.
There's a whole bunch of Jesse Ventura action figures they could do that people like me would gobble up.
Well, and even if you don't want to eat them, if you just want to play with them.
In the purchasing sense.
In the purchasing sense.
That's right.
Gobble, gobble. Well, direct from Gobbler's Knob, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Jesse Ventura Show. But no, so that's good to see. Another prodigal son returns home to the WWF.
No heel commentator that I could think of off the top of my head since Jesse Ventura had the credibility of Jesse Ventura. Like, Bobby Heenan was different because Bobby Heenan was willing to be the fool. Like Jesse Ventura, there was never any of that. He would argue.
Yeah.
He would argue with Vince about, oh, you like your favorites. He would argue with him about that shit. Him and Monsoon is like the most underrated, I think fans of WWF at that time love it, but underrated teams because they didn't do that much together. But there was this weird respect. Like, they would joust with each other. Jesse Ventura would, ask Monsoon about wrestling Jim Landis or something. And Monsoon would have some snarky reply. And they were really fun together, but Ventura had credibility, and he even would say things about some of the wrestlers you would watch as a kid, and it was obvious you couldn't deny their talent, even though they were a babyface. He wouldn't just bury them. He would say who had talent. He would point it out. I think he's still to this day the standard for a heel commentator.
Well, Jesse had several things, because one, the voice was just tremendous, and the delivery.
That's right.
And
1, 2, and a 3.
He was another guy that early on was influenced by Billy Graham, but he had a completely different voice and cadence and style of delivery. It was with the muscles and the boas and the blonde hair and whatever that, Graham influenced him. But also, when Jesse started doing color, he pretty much knew that his wrestling career was over. So he was going to establish himself as a personality and as an announcer rather than not one of the announcer, but maybe, the color guy. But he was going to get his own personality over because the reason why he transitioned into announcing was he had blood clots. And when I saw, I've told you that story not long ago, when I saw him at the airport, when he had just done some of his first commentary, he said, yeah, I've been out for 6 months. I can't do the fucking voice, but I've had blood clots. So they blame Agent Orange in Vietnam. I don't know whether that was true or not. But if he couldn't wrestle anymore, he knew that he could get over that way, and he was going to be one of the bigger stars in the company, even if it was an announcer. And that's the first time that a real long-term announcer, even an ex-wrestler that's now an announcer, was still, fully capable of being one of the biggest stars in the company. Bruno was a legend, but not as an announcer. Ventura could transition right in with the outfits and the voice and the delivery and the vocabulary. It still worked.
See, that was one of the teams. It was McMahon, Ventura, and Bruno. And it would basically be Vince and Jesse calling the match, and then Bruno would do the replay, and then Jesse would make fun of Bruno. And Bruno would be such a baby face, he couldn't really fight back. Like, he wouldn't, hey, you're not nice. He wouldn't really say anything. But Ventura also an important role in terms of behind the scenes in wrestling for what he attempted, what didn't happen. And, he tried to unionize before WrestleMania 2. Vince McMahon revealed under oath in a deposition, or during the lawsuit when Ventura sued for royalties, that Hulk Hogan was the person that turned in Ventura as wanting to start the union.
Time dropper Hogan.
He was sent home. He ended up doing Predator, getting him into the Screen Actors Guild. Now he's got his union. And NBC, Dick Ebersol, they had a hit with Saturday Night's Main Event. This is really a period of time where SNL, it's at the end of the Ebersol years, about to have Lorne Michaels come back. Wrestling was doing better or as good as some of those SNLs when Lorne Michaels came back.
Yeah.
Ventura was a big star on that show, and he was a big reason for the success. Again, I always say about Excalibur, or Shivani, or Michael Cole in the past, whoever, you need a strong commentating team. And if you have the right people, it works. And they demanded he came back. And Jesse ended up leaving when he got his own video game deal. And Vince tried to kill it, or wanted him to kill it, and he refused, and he was fired.
And probably the last time that they may have been able to do something to, I don't know, force a union, but at least force Vince to do something, was around about that era, because Jesse realized, what if everybody on the card right before WrestleMania said, nah, fuck it. We ain't going to be doing that unless you do this for us. And Hogan, to protect himself, the position that he had.
That's right.
Because he wasn't going to go anywhere, because he was making all the money, and he and Vince were bosom buddies, and he was the chosen one. He got wind of it and told Vince about it so Vince could shut it down before it came time to nut cutting time, as they used to say. And since then, now it's almost impossible, because you'd never get, back then, if you got 30 guys to go in on that, Vince would have been powerless. Today, you'd have to get 175 or how many they've got.
Even what Jesse opened up with his lawsuit win, royalties, those are pretty much gone now because of the changing formats.
Yeah. And that was the thing that Jesse also, and I can tell you this from personal experience, Jesse won the case that he should have been paid royalties on these VHS releases which is what they were back then. But nobody really knew in the middle 80s. Still, the guys were on the road. I knew I was a fucking video freak, right? But nobody really knew what kind of market anything on VHS was going to be. They were making towns, whatever. It's only been a few years we got these things. But, Vince knew, and so he never put royalties in the contract. And then when Jesse went back and won this, point being, there was a clause at that point Vince couldn't withhold royalties from the talent, but there were clauses in contracts that depending on what kind of contract, an announcer contract or an employee contract or even a talent contract, you didn't get royalties if you did color commentary. And that was the Jesse Ventura clause. Because think about that. The announcers are on every fucking thing. So they would have literally got a royalty for every goddamn match that's ever fucking released, right? Or two of the announcers at least. So announcers didn't get royalties, only the wrestlers.
And then for years, they edited out Jesse's audio when they put stuff out so they wouldn't have to pay him.
Which was awkward at a lot of times.
Yeah, no one really wants to hear Gorilla Monsoon or Vince having a conversation with themselves. It's really weird. But Jesse Ventura back in the fold, and hopefully there'll be, again, he's an older guy. He's not really kept up with the product from what we've heard. So you can't really expect him to go out there and be Jesse Ventura of 35 years ago. But it's just good, I guess, to have him there for, like you said, appearances, merchandise.
Well, yeah, and I don't know how many. Actually, he may go to WrestleMania or do something at Access or, Hall of Fame ceremony or whatever, something like that. I don't think he's going to be just popping up on TV every so often, but I'm sure they can figure out a way to use his name, likeness, reputation, and the vast amounts of video they've got to make some kind of money out of it. Or a biography, Jesse Ventura.
Hey, you know what would be the ultimate way to move past Vince McMahon and show the world that you've done it? Bring Dr. D. David Schultz back into the fold. Apologize to him for killing his career. Let's see what that does. That'll be the ultimate sign that Vince has no involvement. When they were going to do that oral history of WWE a few years ago, I don't know what happened to that project. It was a major project. The first rule WWE gave for their participation was no David Schultz. He cannot be interviewed for this book. So let's get him back there, I think, next.
Yeah, well, and then they could do a 2-pack of the action figures, David Schultz and John Stossel. Complete with slapping action and ear bandage.
See, unless you want to pay Stossel, it kind of has to just be generic mustached announcer man, I think, to make it work.
Well, you pretty much just described John Stossel.
A deluxe edition with Fuji in the background and the Iron Sheik in the background watching. I gotta see this shit. Let me go to the hallway and see what's about to happen.
He's gonna talk to Schultz. Oh, God.
All right, well, that was the Jesse Ventura news. And Jim, you hear news in lots of different ways. Some people read it the old-fashioned way. Some people hear it. That, too, is an old-fashioned way, I guess. Some people watch it. But if you need to hear the news, or music, or podcasts, or anything else, we know someone who could deliver wonderful listening experiences to you through their earbuds.
You know, Brian, it's funny you mentioned the Raycon everyday wireless earbuds. It wasn't really funny the way you did it, but it's funny you mentioned them because right now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's back to school time. You've heard about this, Brian. You got some kids. Do you put them in school or do they know everything already?
Well, they go to school and it's back to school time. We all sit down and watch Rodney Dangerfield's 1986 classic. 86, 87, 86?
It's your story. Tell it.
Yeah, hey.
Hey, I'll tell you.
And another thing, Vonnegut, fuck you!
Yeah, and besides, I told my son about the birds and the bees. He told me about my wife and the butcher. But the thing is, if your kids are going back to school, and boy, it's about time you got them out of the house, isn't it? Well, they're going to need brand new everyday wireless earbuds. Because the back-to-school shopping is not complete unless you get the absolute must-have for the fall. The kids, they're going to want to... If your kids do not have everyday wireless earbuds from Raycon when they go back to school, they're going to have to listen to the teacher. They're going to have to listen to boring lectures and lessons. Nobody wants to hear that when they're in school. They want to hear rock and roll music the way God intended it.
What? First of all, I don't know the way, that's the way God intended it, for children to ignore their teachers by listening to rock and roll.
Yeah. What else do you do when you're in school? Haven't you ever heard of rock and roll high school? But let me tell you, folks, right now, it's not only for just getting through school without having to listen to the teachers. It's also, you know what? You can pair these things with your, what do they call them? The green teeth? Green teeth was the
Bluetooth.
The Bluetooth. You can pair it with the Bluetooth and all the other cell phones and things kids use these days. And if you've got the everyday wireless earbuds, well, then you can have a secret communicator with somebody in a closet with the book, and they're reading you the answers. So you can pass all your tests.
Let's focus on the adults in the audience and selling to the adults in the audience. And when I say the audience, the people listening, let's talk about the fine products of Raycon for the adult population.
Well, let's go ahead and sell to the adult population out there that are listening now that are going to be in school, because if you're an adult, you're still in school, that means you're stupid. So,
hold on now. That's not true. Now. That's not true. Some people go back to school. Some people continue with school.
Did Rodney.
Well, he was rich. He decided he wanted to be with his son at school. That's beautiful. He joined the diving team, did the triple Lindy.
I don't know now. Come on now. If a guy in his 50s, 60s just comes to school because he wants to be near his son, you think that's going to pass muster? Somebody's going to be investigating that.
For what?
That's why you need your everyday wireless earbuds to keep up with the news, so they can tell you if there are any suspicious people wandering around your school.
It's all on film. There's no questions.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, the Raycon everyday wireless earbuds also will play video inside your brain.
No.
So you can actually see the music as it's being created.
No. I don't even know where that came from. That's a first. No, it doesn't do that.
I thought because these are the new improved ones now.
It doesn't do that yet, but stay tuned.
Okay, that's still in development, folks.
Well, the future's a promising something.
A promising place. Well, they do have the quick charge function. Charge it for 10 minutes, you can get 90 minutes of battery. So you just, kids in their second, third grade, they're on their smoke break in between classes.
Again, honk. No, the kids have nothing to do with this. This is about the adults on their smoke break from their job, leaving their cubicle. Leaving the cubicle.
The kids are all right in the cubicle. Just leave them there. And also, it's got the ergonomic design to fit that wide range of ears, no matter how far apart they are. These things will go in. Multi-point connectivity.
Connectivity.
Yeah, that too.
You're making it sound like it comes from Connecticut.
Connectivity. Actually, it's from Con Edison.
Ah.
And that's the activity that they undergo there at Con Ed. Awareness mode, the active noise cancellation feature. You can you press that button, you can't hear you can't hear it thunder. And as a matter of fact, if you don't press the button again, you'll be deaf permanently. It works that way. You got to press that button if you want to hear again. 3 customizable sound styles. It's weatherproof and/or sweat resistant. I'd like to see somebody wear them out in the rainstorm that hit the castle yesterday. That would put that to the test. And the earbud tap functions that reduce discomfort. When you're feeling uncomfortable about something, you tap these things, instantly a feeling of well-being comes over you. No more discomfort. Well, that's worth the price of admission alone. And they've got a 30-day happiness guarantee. So how can you beat that? Every time you want to be happy for 30 days, you press a button on these things, and they'll sing you a little happy song. If it makes you happy. Something like that. Or maybe Happy by Keith Richards.
Go for that. Go for that one. Stop with the Sheryl Crow. We've established that's not really your key.
It's not my key.
Why don't you go with Keith Richards, who could barely sing?
Might not even be my lock. But right now, if you go to buyraycon.com/JCE, listen to this now. This is a new deal here. And nothing that FDR had anything to do with. 20 to 40% off site-wide. Up to 40% off everything on the website. which of course is buy, BUYRAYCON, buyraycon.com. If you use the promo code JCE, 20 to 40% off. So again, it's the best if you do the math. Now, if you buy 3 things that are 40% off, that means you're going to get 120% off. That means they're going to send you these things and 20% of the purchase price back to you. It's amazing the way they do this and still stay a going concern. So, and if you buy 5 things, you'd get 200%, right? Well, that means that they would give you these things that you bought plus half your money back. Because 200% is twice what 100% is.
Hey, listen, why don't we stay away from doing math for everyone? Let everyone decide what they want to do. Let everyone add it up with their own numbers. State tax and everything else. Yeah. Let's stay out of it.
Simple numbers. You can do the math yourself, folks. 20 to 40% off site-wide. Everything at buyraycon.com/JCE. Get those kids fixed up for the back-to-school times. For heaven's sake. I mean, we all need to learn some things. They can learn lyrics to their favorite songs while they're in algebra class.
All right. The views of Jim
I never
Cornette.
got that algebra. Algebra.
The what now?
The algebra.
You never got it?
Never. It never appealed to me.
Well, how far did you get with math in high school?
Well, I'll tell you what. 3rd grade math was the hardest 4 years of my life.
Okay. Did you get the calculus?
Yes, but thankfully the dentist got it all off.
All right, buyraycon.com. One more time, Jim. What's that code?
Buyraycon.com/JCE. And I'll tell you what, when your kids graduate 6th grade, they will be so excited they can hardly shave without cutting themselves.
Once again, we're talking about the adults, and for the adult in you, because you are an adult, buyraycon.com/JCE.
The adult in you. Wasn't that Barbara Streisand, but it was written by Barry Gibb?
I'm not too familiar with that area of the Barbara Streisand catalog. Yes. I don't know. You have a lot of Barbara Streisand records?
Well, just only the classics. Just what sits on everyone's shelf.
Well, Jim, speaking of...
Sitting on shelves?
Speaking of sitting on shelves, before we get to AEW Dynamite, let's talk about a story that broke before AEW Dynamite. A picture, very obviously intentionally put out there.
Provocatively posed.
Yeah, was put out there showing Tony Khan in a state of shock, I guess. His hands covering his face. Or not covering his face, but how do you describe it? He's
sitting at a conference table or a boardroom table, and he's got his elbows on a table in front of him, and both his hands are up like he was looking through his fingers at something while covering his face, and then somebody yelled, "Hey, Tony!" and he turned around and looked to the left of him. That's what it looked like to me.
And to the left of him in the room, at least in this picture, you could see part of a person with a very deep tan, or at least they're beet red, or I don't know what's happening there, but Shane McMahon. Purportedly, this was taken in an airport, and it comes off stories that Jim Ross, I think, mentioned somewhere about Shane McMahon asking someone about AEW. And then it came out, I think, that it was Sasha Banks or Mercedes Moné. That was the person he ran into at an airport. He's running into a lot of people at the airport. I don't know what's happening.
Well, but you haven't mentioned the photographer of that picture of Tony Khan across the table from Shane McMahon.
Apparently that was Mercedes Moné, correct?
Mercedes Moon has claimed that she took the picture, and we have no reason to doubt her, because why would you claim that shitty-looking, poorly framed picture if you didn't take it?
Yeah, who else would Shane not charge and tackle?
But again, people are saying, "Oh my God, now I told you it was going to happen." No. Mercedes Moon like Shane. And Mercedes Moon is making a ton of money, plus getting the use of the private jet and who knows what else from AEW and Tony Khan. And again, They were in an airport. It didn't look like if you had come to a business meeting to discuss some major shit, you'd be sitting down talking about it. You would, if you were going to have a picture taken and distributed publicly, you wouldn't have one of the talent take a shitty picture of part of y'all with their phone. It would be like Triple H does when he's shaking hands with people.
The photo was taken on July 29th, Arlington, Texas.
And because Arlington is very close to the DFW airport. And that's where they're having their residency. And if you're flying across country, you got to fly in and out of there or through there or whatever in many flights from many airlines. So I think, hey, it's another deal. Shane was coming through. Hey, Shane, would you like to meet Tony? All right. I still say no, Shane McMahon will not be working in a wrestling capacity for AEW.
In a wrestling capacity means as an on-screen wrestler or in any way with the company, period?
Well, no, I mean, what else do they do? Fucking manufacture goddamn washing machines? No, he's not going to wrestle. He's not going to announce. He's not going to manage. He's not going to be an
executive?
An executive.
Does Shane want to go back to WWE? Do you think Shane would use something like this as a tool? A public relations tool to make WWE say, we don't want a McMahon over in AEW. We don't want a McMahon on our show, but we also don't want one over there.
Boy,
because apparently the rumor is he's wanted to come back and they have not really been open to it.
There may be, so if he's tried to talk to him already, and boy, if you can't have a good sit down with your brother-in-law, then Christmas must be goddamn awkward. Then maybe that there could be something there where he's stringing this guy along or just being seen. Well, the same way Jerry Jarrett took the Russian, what was his name? To the when he was working for TNA.
Oh, Jerry Oleg Prudius.
Yeah, he was a purdy one, wasn't he?
Oleg Prudius, I think was his name, yeah.
He was very prudish also, was very, very prudish.
He's actually a very nice guy.
But Jerry Jarrett wanted to get out of TNA. He wanted Dixie to fire him. He wanted to be done with it. And they wouldn't, so he took the Russian and recommended him to Vince and had pictures taken there. Is Shane doing the opposite? Is he just, all right, I'll take this guy's picture with him and I'll meet with him because Mercedes wants me to, but deep down, they may be afeared that I will go to AEW.
Well, Shane McMahon issued a statement. He sent this missive to Bully Ray, apparently, on his show. Tony and I were connected through a mutual friend, and we had a great meeting. See, he really is trying to buddy up to me. Use the word great. We talked about many things, but mostly about our shared love for the business and the rewards and challenges of working with family. I congratulated him on the 5-year anniversary of AEW and look forward to how he evolves the business moving forward.
And I signed my action figure for him. I mean, again, I don't even really put a whole lot of faith in the idea that Shane is trying to strong arm the WWE in this tactic to bring him back to do something.
If he wasn't trying to do something, why is he meeting with Shane in Texas?
Because he was flying through and Mercedes asked him to meet her Mark boss. I mean, it could be that simple. But I'm not saying that I don't think Shane might not want to go back and do something with the WWE. He does love the wrestling business and he loved performing and his way and etc. But that's why I've said before, he always looked at any other company as a step down. Even WCW, when it was goddamn competitive, was still, but it's not the WWF. He was into the mindset that Vince had with, the Kevin Dunns and everybody, that we are the only thing that matters. And it would be a come down for him, I think, in his mind, well, and literally, to work for any other company. It would be the second-rate second place. He doesn't need the money, for fuck's sake. So that's why I think that he's being nice. He's being nice and maybe stirring some other people up.
And again, without knowing the conversation, you could also imagine that Shane McMahon at this point in time, looking back, probably has a lot of, I don't know if regrets are the word, but just thoughts about how things could have been different if he had had his hand on more of the pie. And it's not going to happen in WWE. If they brought him back, it would be as a performer, right? I mean, they're not looking at an executive capacity, I wouldn't think. With AEW, again, this is just crazy talk, but if Shane had something he wanted to prove, if Shane had something he wanted to do, not necessarily as an on-screen wrestler, but Shane never got to run a wrestling company, and he's not going to get to run Tony's wrestling company.
Well, that's what I was about to say.
But if Shane wanted to be, if Tony knows he needs serious executives, and Shane wants to be a wrestling executive, AEW is the only home for him.
Well, but that means that he just can't be a wrestling executive to me, because if he was looking at that television show based on things that he has said about other things to me 25 years ago at the time, he would say, well, this is a bunch of indie bullshit, basically, in so many words, or maybe not, maybe different words. But that's why I just don't see it. If Shane cannot be involved in the number one company, the company his father started, if he was being courted to take over and run for Tony Khan, AEW in its entirety, then I might believe he's talking to him. Because he might want to run an entire wrestling company from the top down like his dad did. And maybe see if he could prove that he could be competitive. But nobody, the guys get to do their own shit in the ring, but nobody gets to pry the book or the ability to hire and fire wrestlers or the other things that come along with the guy that actually runs a company. Tony's not going to let a death grip of any of that shit go. So,
do you think Shane's hurt in the wrestling business in 2024? Again, whatever he would want to do, wherever that may be, with the name McMahon? He's never come out and said, no, my father was doing shit I don't approve of and I want nothing to do with it. We have no idea where he stands with anything, but that's probably one of the reasons why WWE may not even consider it, was they may not want McMahon on TV as a character.
Well, but Stephanie McMahon was at the Hall of Fame, and Stephanie McMahon was introduced at WrestleMania.
She's a Helmsley.
Well, Shane could get married to, Shane could be Shane McMahon Mazzola. He'd just take his wife's name, Marissa's. Yeah.
I don't know about that.
And he could come out covered in corn oil. Well, man, tell me that wouldn't have worked in the Attitude Era.
I don't know.
Here comes Mazzola Man covered in corn oil.
I hate to see what Pete Gas would have been wearing, but yeah, I don't know.
But that's, again, maybe if Tony was talking to Shane, and again, that would be a risk. It might not be as big a risk as Tony has been, but if Tony was talking to Shane about running the whole thing, I might could buy it. But Shane's not just going to show up on the TV just to make intermittent appearances as Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon does not need the money, regardless of how much money that Tony would pay him. He's not going to do something full time. And he's not going to be an executive where he's sitting there with other executives, to be quite honest, that are either 20 years younger than he is or have never goddamn farted in a fucking major arena before Tony started renting them for him. He's not going to be one of that gang. So I just don't see that it fits. He's too big, too old, too proud, and doesn't need the money. So figure it out from there.
What do you think of the decision to leak the photo? Because obviously it was a conscious effort to get that photo out there and get people talking about it.
Well, again, if Mercedes is standing by with her cell phone ready to snap a picture, it was an odd If you were trying to give the impression you were negotiating, would you have Shane standing there in casual wear leaning over the table and Tony looking like goddamn Professor Irwin Corey? And I think just here they're both in the same room, that kind of thing. Okay, yeah, go ahead and send it out, Sasha. Yeah, that's fine.
Well,
if it was supposed to look like a big time negotiation, I'd have had some papers on the desk and both guys sitting there with pens in their hands and paying attention to what's going on.
Well, more just they were going into a Dynamite, which we're about to talk about, an AEW Dynamite against the Olympics, so you got to figure it'll take some kind of hit. They're in the middle of negotiating the exclusivity. The period with Warner Brothers Discovery where they have exclusive talks is over. That's not to preclude them from any further talks. It's just now they can talk to anyone. And they need buzz. They kind of have a stretch where something happens on Dynamite, and by the next week, everything moves on. You move on, you forget what happened. Everything moves on. There's no real big show to show great build of things right now. And who knows if that's part of the motive, just to get buzz in the program. But what'd you think of AEW Dynamite this past week?
Oh, me. Let me consult with my notes. Well, here they are.
Yeah, what are you, beating them up? What the hell's going on?
I'm consulting with them, and they're going to talk. I'll get it out of them. The opening segment, or the opening, I get the interview, and then the match, and then the afterbirth, and the blah, blah, blah. MJF is, again, the most captivating speaker on the program amongst their talent roster, or anybody. And they've successfully turned him back heel now. But now if you start to listen, it's kind of like, deja vu all over again. MJF was a tremendous heel on the microphone and in the ring with the psychology of his matches. But he was so entertaining that people started cheering. Then the nitwits decided, well, because they're cheering him, we ought to turn him babyface, when they were cheering him because he was the antithesis of a babyface and because of the fact that he was so good at being a heel. But once you turn that guy babyface, as we've gone over this many times, then you got the problems of how to keep him over, because as a babyface, he either can't do or needs to reapply the things that he did that caused him to be popular to begin with. And finally, babyface MJF was not a long-term thing, and they realized this, and after his injury, they switch him back heel. But now, again, he's so good at what he says that people start laughing anyway, and they start liking it anyway. But this is probably the best spot that he can be in, because you're letting him be the real MJF. And as long as you've got a baby face that's strong that you can put him against, it's okay. But when you don't, then that poor baby face that's just not over as much as MJF is going to get blistered. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay. So here's the thing. Ospreay, they like him. The fans like him. They view him as a top guy. They're still cheering for him despite the bizarre booking, who's in the heel group and blah, blah, blah. But I'm afraid that the more they let him talk, the less people will like him, and the more they'll just like MJF. Because MJF promoted Ospreay and, promoted South Carolina. But when he said, South Carolina, you trailer park trashes, you meth heads, a lot of the people, yes, we are. It's like when I went to Philadelphia, when they started getting smart up there, and in my intro, I said, you're the ugliest looking bunch of people I've ever seen. Yes, we fucking suck. But that's fine, as long as when Ospreay comes out, he can carry it. But he had fire, he had passion, But he runs out to the ring to a big pop, and MJF bails and runs back to the entrance. And Ospreay got so complicated. And with that mouthful of gravel. And at one point, he's screaming because he wants to have aggression and animosity and passion and all that stuff. But he's screaming in that accent and not making his sentences short enough. So at one point, if you analyze what he said, I swear to God, he said, "And there's not one fan amongst you here that can possibly deny that MJF is an American hero." He said it backwards. I mean, go back, but the longer that he talked, that's because there were so many qualifiers and commas and sub-references. So the longer that he talked, the more that he was losing me and the fans, I think. And he was screaming. First they were with him, and then they're like, what did he say, Ethel?
Well, the other thing, too, how big is his pop when he comes out? Because if you notice, his music starts with a giant pop built into the song. So I can never tell how big his pop is versus the loud crowd boom that he'll get, almost like Mercedes Moné style, in his song.
Well, but also they were cheering him when he started talking until he goddamn puzzled them and lost them, and they couldn't. And can you imagine a PA microphone in an arena with that accent and everything? And when he went home with it, his closing line, when he hit his point, he finished it, and you could tell the fans didn't really know what his point was, so they just started chanting USA. And the whole thing, and
by the way, if they're chanting USA, does that mean they're cheering MJF?
Well, no, that he was trying to say that. See, here's the thing.
Right?
He's trying to tell this story where MJF isn't really an American hero, and so is MJF. He's not really, we hate you. You're not our American hero. You just claim to be. That's what it's supposed to be. But Ospreay, since he's from England, he's talking about, I love my flag just like the Yanks. The Yanks love their flag. But so he's trying to, but at the same time, it's just so fucking confusing.
Of all the things AEW has failed at, it's articulating this U.S. versus England feud on multiple different occasions now.
Yes. And they didn't really need one with this because the USA guy in Wembley is the fucking heel anyway. So we really didn't need to go back to the Revolutionary War and dig up old wounds. But MJF would get it back on track, a little bit at the end, but that's the thing. I thought Ospreay was a little bit verbose here when he didn't need to be going on and confusing people. But then
I don't think you should use bruv more than once in a sentence. I noticed a few times where it's like, bruv, I'll tell you another bruv. And I was like, okay, too many, too soon.
Well, and I know he's trying to get that over because bro works so well for Shitstain. It's made him a fortune. But if MJF finished the promo by saying, tonight in this shithole, and they were being liberal on the language again, I wonder if it's just when it depends on who's on the button. But tonight in this shithole, everybody dies, including the ratings, because here came Lance Archer. And I like Lance Archer, but he is a guy who's never won a big match in AEW. He hadn't been on TV in ages. And it's just, he comes out to do a job. But basically, he came out to do the job by kicking the shit out of Will Ospreay from the start. Opened with a choke slam, foiled his dive, slammed him on the floor, ragdolled him. They went to the break. They came back. He was still kicking the shit out of him. And Ospreay would do a flip every once in a while or a kick and get cut off again. And finally, Archer went for a choke slam off the top rope, and Ospreay did the Spanish fly, which makes no sense. They're both just taking a goddamn dive off the top rope. But Ospreay hit him with a Spanish fly off the top rope, 2 count. Cody Cutter, 2 count. Then Archer just came back with a clothesline. I got a 2 count. And I'm right. Seriously? Ospreay with a DDT and hit his back elbow finish. It didn't look good, but it really never does. And Archer kicked out at 1. And then Ospreay just hits another elbow. 1, 2, 3. When did Steve Austin stunner a guy, cover him, he kick out at 1, and he give him another stunner and beat him 1, 2, 3? When did that happen?
It never happened. And the other thing is, like, you'll get a big pop for the finish no matter what it is, but there are multiple times we've seen it, and this was another example where what should have been the finish, and the fans were ready for it to be the finish, wasn't the finish, and then you just hit with another finish, and the pop isn't the same.
You know what the indie guys will say? Well, we're crossing them up. They don't expect that. Well, no shit, because it doesn't make any sense. And besides that, get it right. That used to be the booker's instruction to the main event guys. Get it right, go home. I mean, if whatever time when you got the people in it, it was right, it was ready to go home, do your finish, and you're done. And they cannot get it right when the people are really ready to blow and they've seen wow, what a 1, 2, and then later on, small package. Yay. What the fuck? But anyway, after Ospreay unsurprisingly defeated Lance Archer, then MJF jumped in and grabbed Ospreay and gave him a brain buster. And then he put on his ring and drew back, and Kyle Felcher hit the ring. And this time, not the ring on MJF's hand, but came into the squared circle and ran MJF again. So now MJF has run from Ospreay. Now he's running from Felcher. And this began another long interview segment. And again, also, did you see what Mr. Felcher was wearing?
I don't recall offhand, but I saw it obviously because I watched it.
Well, he's trying to get personality.
Personality?
Instead of being as bland as he was, he had dress shoes with no socks, really tight jeans, a midriff-bearing T-shirt. And so he's apparently adopting the personality of an effete douchebag. It looked with the fucking white hair. I don't know what's going on here, but now he's cutting a fucking promo on MJF. And then Don Callis gets in the ring. You know, the top heel manager that never manages anymore, that has a group of people that he never corners and we never see him with, but he comes out in interview segments when they want to do something that doesn't have anything to do with his group or when they want out of it. Remember, Ospreay said, "Hey, Don, I'd like to get out of the group." Okay. Well, now Felcher tells Don Callis that Ospreay is his best friend and he needs help. And Felcher says asshole, and they censor it 10 seconds later, or tried to, but they missed it. Hey, so now, go ahead.
Well, what do you think about that? The fact that babyface needs help against one person?
Well, yeah, I'm still trying to figure out who the fucking heels are in Callis's fucking deal. Because Callis is the nicest heel manager I've ever seen all of a sudden. And so now another member of Callis's heel group is a babyface telling him that another one of the babyfaces needs help against MJF because he's a big bully, I guess. And then Kyle starts doing a promo like he's a badass. And they're in South Carolina. People are farting because he looks like a fucking tampon. He's not goddamn, Bruiser Brody. And again, Kyle was trying with the aggression and the animation and the emotion and everything, and it was better than Ospreay because his accent is not so thick you can understand the words coming out of his mouth. But it wasn't earth-shattering because it's Kyle Felcher and nobody gives a shit. And the people are kind of, eh. And then they did build it up where Kyle wanted MJF right now, and MJF started milking it and taking his shirt off and taking his watch off or whatever, and then said no, and people were up. He said, next week on TV. All right. So why does Don Callis never manage the guys in his group? He just comes out to let them out of their commitments. Well, what did you think of this whole parade of infamy here?
Where does the parade start exactly for this?
Well, the MJF and Marble Mouth Ospreay and the match with Lance Archer, where Ospreay proved the new multi-million-dollar acquisition proved that it takes everything that he can possibly do to beat a guy that we never see, that never wins a big match.
I thought MJF was good. I think Ospreay's energy is good, but he goes on too long. He's someone, whether in the ring at times, but certainly on the mic, you should give people less. Because if you get something less and it's really good, you don't get to that point a few minutes in where you're like, all right, he's still going. I'm not as enthusiastic for him as I was a few minutes ago. With Fletcher, I've been impressed by him in the ring lately. With that said, his look is ridiculous. He's part of the heel stable in the middle of whatever drama thing is going to happen with him and Ospreay. And I think my biggest problem is MJF, once again, seemingly being used to elevate someone or try to elevate someone. And I think while that's the role of a veteran in a wrestling company, and MJF at this point is the veteran of AEW, I think MJF should be working with top guys. And I know AEW has a top guy problem. Ospreay for them right now is a top guy. But whether it's Daniel Garcia or Fletcher right now, the way he's been used, I've never seen him win ever.
Ever.
You know, that's my biggest issue booking wise, big picture, as I hate MJF running from another low card babyface / question mark / heel, who knows, that isn't even over with their audience. He should only be running from people that are over right now, not from people that people don't know. No one knows. He's been on their show, but does the audience know who Kyle Fletcher is?
But if MJF was only running from people that are over, he wouldn't get very much exercise in that company.
That's a bigger problem, and that's a different problem, and it doesn't mean that's the problem. They keep using MJF because of that, because there aren't main eventers for him to work with. He keeps being used to elevate other people.
Here, let's let you work with MJF so that he can cut the promo for you and tell people why that you're something.
Sometimes they cut to MJF on the stage, like while the other guy's talking, and you could tell the guy's just talking gibberish, and MJF, you could read his mind. You could just tell he's like, the fuck is this guy saying right now?
What the hell? Jesus Christ.
How am I going to talk around this? But look, that's whatever we want to say about it. It's the highlight of AEW TV right now. The stuff with MJF, we can nitpick and pick it apart, and with Ospreay, but it's the best thing on AEW right now. It has the most energy of anything in AEW right now. That's not saying much, but it's the highlight of the show, isn't it?
Now here's the problem. Ospreay's got to win at Wembley Stadium or they'll set the seats on fire. So did they agree to do this, just a quick, you win one and then I'll win one, because Tony had fucked up his timing and his preparation for Ospreay to be able to win something else big like the world title at Wembley? So, but they can't have a third match right now because neither one of those guys needs to lose twice to the other guy right now. So they're going to have to leave it at 1-1 and then milk a rematch potentially for way farther on down the line. At which point Tony will probably have booked that into irrelevancy. But you see what I'm saying? Ospreay can't lose twice to MJF this early in his run, and MJF, having just switched, can't lose twice to Ospreay.
Is Ospreay in storyline reasonably mad enough, do you think, to whip out the Tiger Driver 91 at Wembley, or is that
good God.
Is it too early for that? And by the way, they keep talking about it. They throw out that name, Excalibur, who's so awful as a commentator. Tiger Driver 91! No one knows what it is. That's the thing. If you traded tapes in the 90s and were watching All Japan, you know what it is. It's never really been established in the U.S. on national TV. They should, if they're going to do this, why aren't there videos explaining it, showing it, talking about why it's devastating?
Talking about why do you call it a Tiger Driver and why is there a number to it?
Yeah, and why is he afraid? What is he afraid of doing it for? What is the reason?
Well, no, they explained that one week, and that, he hurt the other guy, so he don't want to hurt anybody again. They explained it one week, and then...
Where's the video?
But yeah, and again, Tiger Driver, it's like the Michinoku Driver and the this and that are named after people that especially this audience doesn't know from 30 years ago. Because many of them weren't born then. And they could easily...
Mr. Pile Driver. Mr. Pile is upset about what's happened to Pile Driver. Everyone's using Driver for something.
They could easily give it its own name that guy does. The Stone Cold Stunner, right? Everybody's using it, but it's not the Stone Cold Stunner unless Steve Austin uses it. Don't have the guy steal a fucking finish from a Japanese wrestler that nobody saw from 30 years ago, that nobody's seen in this fucking day and age and environment. Make it a new name that only this guy does, and then get that fucking holdover, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But you asked me the question about the Tiger Driver, I would have him come out and say, you know what, fuck the Tiger Driver. Fuck his fucking neck. I'm going to break his neck. I'm going to Tiger Driver twice. He's fucking... He stole my title belt. He fucking hit me in the head with a goddamn souped up diamond brass knuckle. I'm going to drop him on his head and laugh about it. Right in my own hometown in London and home country, wherever the fuck he's from, Wembley. Because MJF deserves it.
We have good health care, bruv.
Yeah, he can say that. We've got good health care. Unlike in your country, we've got good health care and you're going to need it.
Well, see, that's the problem, though.
That's the thing is you can't have a babyface be a big pussy. I don't want to hurt him. Fuck, he hurt you. He's a heel, you fucking dipshit. That's why normal wrestling fans and grown adult men think these guys are all fucking pussies because they whine about their dreams and who was their friend and they don't want to hurt nobody. Then become a goddamn ad salesman then if you don't want to hurt anybody.
Well, that's the other problem, too. MJF's now like Mr. Patriot. Ospreay can't be like, yo, fuck America. I'm from England. Instead, he has to be like, I love you. I love the people who love flags, too, or whatever he said.
Are you sure he said flags? His accent was...
He said, will you stop it? Will you behave yourself?
All right.
Well, that was the opening segment and the Lance Archer match. Jake Roberts did not make his way out to the ring. We heard they re-signed him, and then we never saw him again.
That's right. What the fuck is it? He's on the goddamn retirement plan with Tony?
It's a nice plan from what I understand, but that was segment 1 into segment 2 of...
Yes, well, but now in quick order, they had a Swerve video, a little late for that. He's deader than Kelsey's nuts these days. Jericho and his group did more comedy, and they had a cake that they presented Jericho for 102 days as FTW champion. And of course, he had to mention, every other program, guy gets a cake in his face, but they didn't. So this was just some boring ass shit. And they left Bar Brady holding the cake and taking a finger out of it and making a face like he just dipped his finger into his mother's goddamn homemade icing back home in Punta Gorda or wherever the fuck he's from. And then Chris Statlander wrestled Willow Nightingale. And even though, again, Stokely appears and disappears and has different things going on. He can talk, and if you had something for him to do, he could do something. But with Statlander, they're trying. She looks great. She's got the size, and she has a look now, and they don't introduce her from Neptune or Uranus or wherever the fuck she was before. But
the Andromeda Galaxy.
There you go. That's where they never got in Lost in Space. They were on their way. They never got there. Or no, it was Alpha Centauri.
In Suffolk County.
Suffolk County is where Alpha Centauri is?
No, the Andromeda Galaxy, apparently.
Oh. Well, I knew Suffolk County was big, but I didn't realize it was that big. Did you see the entrance they did for Statlander? They're trying to do something in their own quaint way. They had the blue lighting effect, and she's backlit, and she's coming out, and you see the silhouette, right? And the only thing is, they ain't figured it out. That's all you saw all the way to the ring. Can you imagine if this was the WWE and what's the new guy's name? Fitting.
Oh, Lee Fitting.
Lee Fitting. He's
I don't know
very
who you're
fitting.
talking about. Yes.
Then they would have the backlight and the silhouette and the blue shading, and she would come toward the camera, and then the handheld would push in on a close-up of her, and then they would either throw a spot or throw a light, or she would step onto a mark or whatever, and you could see her fucking face. And she would hit a fucking pose like they've got Jade Cargill doing now in the WWE. It would be... I see they're trying over here, but it ain't Hollywood. It ain't MGM.
And Stokely's not a perfect fit. Like, he has his moments, but it's weird. Not weird, but I don't know. Statlander would maybe be better without him. I guess
there's no origin story because he just shows up with these people. And it's like, well, where did they meet? Or how did they, whatever. He shows up with people and he shows up with different people and then blah, blah, blah.
Should they be showing footage on TV of Statlander pinning Jade?
I don't see why not.
I mean, that's what Watts would do back in the day. Like,
yes.
Hey, look, here's our person defeating their champion. Here it is.
Or Jarrett or any other territory over and over. But Tony's too nice for that. He doesn't want anybody to accuse him of actually being a businessman. But yes, if somebody's got a pinfall over a guy or a girl that's featured currently on the other fucking network, if they're show them getting beat like a fucking drum. But anyway, the match, and I like Willow, and she's a very good baby face, very effective. I didn't watch the whole match because, as I said at the top of the program, time was short this week here at the castle. But it's more of what Tony thinks gets people over that doesn't ever do anything for anybody. Statlander hits a 450 splash off the top rope and gets a 2 count. If you can't beat somebody with that when you're that size and you look that good doing it, just don't do it until you're beating them.
Yeah, by the way, it looked great.
Yes.
It looked really good.
It looked really good for Willow to kick out of. And then Stokely hands Statlander a logging chain. Not like the chain you used to wrap around your fist, the old dog choker chain, a goddamn logging chain that's hanging down to her knees as she's holding it all looped up. And then he goes and draws Ref Aubrey, old Aubrey Ed, and Statlander clotheslines Willow with the chain 1, 2, 3. And then Stokely comes in and gives Statlander a chair. And then Statlander, well, you'll never guess what she does then, Brian.
What does she do?
She hit Willow, hit Willow, hit Willow. And then security comes in and Statlander beats up security. All the guys, remember I said they ought to have female security. Then we'd see something. Because then the female security could fight back. And then they all left. So it didn't do anything for Willow besides she kicked out of the 450 and then she got knocked out with a gimmick and beaten and then hit with a chair. And Statlander had to use a logging chain to beat her, but then the chair and the security. So it's more like Statlander's the baby face you were trying to save with a little out after they got fucked instead of the heel that already went over and then beats up security too. I just don't understand the flow of Tony's brain. Much like a sewer system for a major American city. The effluvia is coming at you from every direction.
Well, booking notwithstanding, I think I personally hope both women eventually get to WWE. NXT.
Yes.
Whatever it may be. They're good. It's just, it's AEW.
Yeah. And then we were at the 9 o'clock hour and Bryan Danielson's promo about his wedding pictures. He had his wedding pictures taken in Greenville, South Carolina. Brian, how many noted photographers are you aware of that come from Greenville, South Carolina?
I think Austin Idol lives there. I've been known to take a picture or two, darling.
Well, that's true, but I don't know if anybody got married over it, or maybe divorced would be more like it.
No, I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, anyway, he made a big admission. He said the last 3 years he's had the most fun of his entire career. And that's what it's all about, kids. It's about going to work and having fun. And I mean,
I never knew I would have so much fun with having a boss who says, no, never, who just throws money at anything, who just will let me do anything I want at any time and take off whatever I want. This is a blast.
I can go anywhere and work for anybody. But they love Bryan Danielson, and he is a talent, even though some of his, as we've come to see, some of his ideas about the wrestling behind the scenes may be a bit dodgy. But they gave him a big thank you, Bryan chant. But the promo was basically about him slowing down for his family. His contract ends tomorrow, as of this was July 31st, so that'd be August 1st, but he'll be at Wembley, obviously.
Hey,
and
the audience gasped when he said his contract was up. That's important to note.
Well, because they thought he was going to say, I'm not going to be at All In. Because, I mean, they knew it was coming up, but, you know, tomorrow, when he said my contract ends tomorrow, it said, oh, fuck, he's done right now? But here's the thing he said, the whole point of this was because he's wrestling Swerve. And now you've got beloved Bryan Danielson, who they really like and who they respect. And you got Swerve, who was just a few short months ago, by virtue of being a heel, he was the most popular babyface in the company. And now he's cooled off because of the booking. So they are turning him back heel now, which we're going to talk about in a second in this interview. But so it's Danielson's last match, for all we know, in AEW. And people are saying, well, will he win the title? Which is stupid. Because, yes, it's a great story. Bryan Danielson wins the title in his last AEW match and retires, as Sting did the same thing, which was kind of stupid, but this would be really stupid. Because Sting wasn't beating anybody important when he beat the Young Bucks. But I don't see, or will Bryan Danielson say, no, I cannot beat Swerve Strickland, but they've thrown a wrinkle into it. He can't say to Tony, well, I can't beat Swerve for the title because I'm finishing up. I'm only going to be maybe wrestling every so often. It wouldn't be right because now they've had him come out and say, if I don't beat Swerve, I'll never wrestle again. So they're trying to move tickets to the stadium show based on the fact that they're promising people that Bryan Danielson would win the world title, which under normal circumstances, I would have no problem with that, except he's already also announced he's not wrestling anymore, except intermittently every once in a while for wherever he wants. So Swerve's there full time and you've already just buried him. So anyway, that's why Bryan Danielson said when he came to AEW, it was for two things. He said he was going to kick a lot of heads in and win the AEW World Heavyweight title. And he said, well, I've kicked heads, but I've not won the belt yet. Not only did he never, I remember, say specifically, my goal is to win the AEW World title. Wasn't he doing interviews where at the first he said he didn't want to be the world champion?
Oh, I'm not even sure, but I didn't remember that being one of his big things. That's for sure.
So anyway, he's going to give it his all in Wembley, and then Swerve's music plays, and out comes Swerve. And now, at the same time as Nana is getting him to chant Swerve's house, Swerve is doing a heel promo now. And the people started turning. You could tell because he was being, heelish and to a guy that they like. But now they're turning the fans on their champion that they liked almost better than anybody in the company 3 months ago for one fucking match. And Swerve tells him, after I'm done with you, you may never walk again. That sounds kind of heelish to me. And that's when Danielson promised, if I don't win the title, if I don't walk out as champion, I'll never wrestle again. So many questions. Have they realized that they buried Swerve as a babyface by having everybody just fucking have their way with him anytime they wanted, and Moxley's Japanese bullshit belt being more featured, and they're turning him back heel to try to fix that? But they're going to beat him in the highest profile match he'll have this year. Or elsewise, Bryan Danielson, unless he's a liar, can never wrestle anywhere again. Even if he wants to, in Arena Mexico, Ole, or whatever.
You know, it says something too that these 3 years, according to Danielson, are the most fun he's ever had. It seems like, to me, it's been a lot of missed opportunities. It's, you know, when he first got there, they were on the cusp of something and they changed course. He got tied up with Blackpool Combat Club, which was a bad idea that went nowhere.
Yeah.
And is still, I think, transpiring in some form. Sometimes he's with him, sometimes he's not.
Well, who knows where Moxley is these days? He might have gone back for the cure.
But he hasn't been in the world title picture. I mean, he had those matches at MJF and, you know, that was great. But, you know, what has he really done in AEW?
Well, no, hold on.
Where's the guy that came off WWE TV that was a big star? Have they done anything to capitalize on any of that?
But also, I'm just thinking, he said the last 3 years have been the most fun of his career. Didn't he come back from an injury where he was out for several months, and then the Japanese guy came off top rope on his arm and broke his arm, and he was out for several more months?
Well, yeah, what he meant to say was, I work once every 6 months and then I get to stay home with my family. I'm having a great time.
Well, he had a loose definition of fun if it involved broken bones and fucking medical treatment.
Well, he also got hurt in, I think, was it him? Didn't he get hurt in the Arena Anarchy match a couple of years ago with Jericho?
Yes. I mean, you can't really keep track. We ought to have a flow chart of all the AEW injuries. And still, I know that even though, no matter how stupid the risk is they take, that they shouldn't be taking, and if they get hurt, Tony will pay them. I still would want to avoid all the surgeries if it was me, but that's just me. But anyway, so we're going to see Swerve and Danielson title versus career. I got a few careers I'd like to put up.
Should he come back as the Masked Dragon? Get around. That way he's lying to not just the heel, but also his daughter.
Well, but then
Daddy's going to tuck you in. Then he jumps on up Tony's plane and he becomes the Masked Dragon.
Well, no, then they could work the deal where if he wins the world title, he has to unmask because Tony has to know who his real identity is, but he can't fucking unmask because his daughter will be watching on TV. So he has to give the belt back. See, nobody's ever done anything like that before.
Yeah, but they don't even have a Bob Geigel. That's the problem. Maybe it could be Shane.
You know what? You know what a problem is when you're saying we don't even have a Bob Geigel. Then you've really got a problem.
That does sound like a pretty awful thing to say.
I don't think those words have ever been uttered before. We only had Bob Geigel.
Well, Jim, of course, you may not want a Bob Geigel, but if you had Bob Geigel action figures, you may have to sell them to someone. You may need a store. You may have a lot of inventory you're going to be sitting on for a long time, but you may need to sell them, and of course, we know someone who can work with you, the small business, on a way to reach the consumer and sell your product.
Is your business right now small, but you'd like it to be big? Well, let me tell you something. Our friends at Shopify can help fluff that sucker up for you. I'll tell you that, boy howdy. Because our friends at Shopify are the global commerce platform that help you sell at every stage of your business, Brian. No matter what you're selling or the service you're offering or the product that you are sending out to the consumers, Spotify can give you the platform and all of the tools that you need to drive your business, as the kids say. And you don't even need a driver's license to drive a business. You just need that good old entrepreneurial spirit, and you need our friends at Shopify behind you. They got all kinds of little schemes and tricks and plots and plans to take
I wouldn't use those. No.
Full advantage of the rubes and the suckers out there.
There are no schemes or plots or plans. I wouldn't use any of those words and apply them to our good friends, the honorable people at Shopify.
The honorable Shopify folk, well, they can help you grow your average order value with the Shopify Bundles app, where you can create and sell product bundles with ease. I mean, you just take unrelated shit and just tie it together with string and bundle it up, and they will sell this shit for you.
That's not exactly.
It could be a riding lawnmower and tax repair service. Just anything, you'd just be tied up together and just sold in a bundle.
Well, again, I'm not exactly sure if that's how that works, the bundling process. It may not be exactly.
You do have to order bigger boxes to put the bundles in when you're sending them out.
Well, let's not talk about this bundle. Why don't we?
For example, Shopify is your no excuses business partner.
Yeah.
When things are going south, you go to your partner. They say, well, you say, what's going on? They say, hey, we don't know what the excuse is. We have no excuses whatsoever. We don't know what the problem is. It's probably with you. Then you can look inward at yourself, but you can sell without needing to code or design. Just bring your best ideas, and Shopify will take them and make a fortune with them, and then give you some of it.
You'll make a fortune with it, and Shopify will be your partner. Let's just make sure.
Unless you need excuses, and then they'll have none. And with Shopify Magic.
Yeah, Shopify Magic. I have to find out about Shopify Magic. Yeah.
Well, you can whip up captivating content that converts from blog posts. You've seen the blog posts. They're about 5 feet apart, about 5 feet high, and they're along major interstates, blog posts, and they have numbers on the top of them.
And they convert?
Well, they convert, yes, from one number to the other. It's how the cops find you when you're bloated and floating in a creek beside the interstate. But you can generate instant fact answers to all of your fact questions. You can pick the perfect email send time. Let's say Byron likes his emails early in the morning, about 6 o'clock. You can program that in there. And Shopify Magic is free for every Shopify seller. So you can instantly learn how to do tricks like that. I'll tell you, I knew a girl that was a magician one time. We were riding down the road in my car. She touched my leg. I turned into a motel. And once you start selling, folks.
Yeah. Folks.
Shopify will make getting paid simple by instantly accepting every type of payment. They'll take cash, they'll take credit cards, they'll take traveler's checks, they'll take green stamps. If you have a vegetable garden, they'd like some beans and corn. They'll be glad to barter for a good-sized hog, as long as he's been fattened up first and is disease-free.
No, none of this is true, no.
You can be paid in any way, shape, or form you want. They'll even print their own money for you.
No, they won't. No, again, official denominations of the country. Let's just focus on the United States and the United States dollar.
Well, but they're a global commerce platform. So they take in money from all over. Some of this money you might not even recognize, folks. It might look like bullshit to you, but in Cambodia, it's a big deal.
They are not printing their own money.
No, they get it from Cambodia.
They are not getting anything from Cambodia.
Actually, most of the Cambodian money originates with catgut and intestines of some of the native animals.
They're not getting any fake money from Cambodia.
They braid it into like a lanyard type of deal, catgut and intestines, and you wear it around your neck and you break a piece off when you want to buy something. Do you want marketing made simple, folks? Well, Shopify is going to remove the guesswork with built-in tools, hammers, chisels, saws, awls, all kinds of things, electric pencil sharpeners.
They just have built-in virtual or digital tools, not physical hardware. It'll get pretty physical down in the trenches there when they're helping you create, execute, and analyze your online marketing campaigns. There's some bloodletting in a situation like that. I guess so.
But running a growing business means getting the insights you need wherever you are. So with Shopify's single dashboard, you can manage orders, shipping, and payments from anywhere while you're driving down the road and still be able to tell how fast you're going. That's with Shopify's single dashboard. There's only one. So who gets the air conditioning control? We're not sure. But right now, You can sign up for a $1 a month trial period at shopify.com/JCE. That's all lowercase at JC. So it's the J with the curve down below the line and the dot over it, and then the little C and the little E. Shopify.com/JCE, $1 a month trial period. Well, fuck it. You can find that in the couch cushions. Now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in, Shopify.com/JCE.
Well, let's go from ka-ching to there's no transition at all, ladies and gentlemen. But let's go back to AEW Dynamite that just took place on the 31st.
This would be more like no sale. Because the next match was Roderick Strong, Rush, and Rigor Mortis.
Well, did you see Danielson and Jeff Jarrett in the back?
I thought that was from last week.
Oh, no, there was another thing this week. He pushed
Oh, what did they do?
He wasn't very happy with Jeff Jarrett, but we'll see what happens.
Well, why wasn't it? Jeff Jarrett said all kinds of nice things to him. Why wasn't he happy with Jeff?
I not exactly. I wasn't paying close attention. I was hoping you were paying attention because I didn't.
No, I thought they were rerunning last week's deal. I didn't. Right. Well, but they had a 6-man tag match. Strong, Rush, and Rigor Mortis with Taven and Bennett in the corner against Mark Briscoe. Poor Mark, stuck in the middle of goddamn jobber hell. Pockets, who continues to be on this program every week. You can't get rid of him like fungus on a shower curtain, like a goddamn infected canker upon your taint. No matter how much you lance it or take antibiotics, it comes right back. And their partner, Ishii. And Kyle O'Reilly walked out on the stage with him to wish him well, and then you never saw him again. But out of Pockets and Ishii and Mark Briscoe, they beat Mark Briscoe. The heels who, again, Roderick Strong, love him. Years ago in Ring of Honor, he's been booked into complete irrelevancy and insensibility, and it's embarrassing now. And Rush, come on. And Rigor Mortis, it just popped up there for shits and giggles. And so out of this whole match, they got 1 star of any kind, Mark Briscoe. He's the one they beat. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch this too closely because it's an Orange Cassidy match. The fact that they beat Mark Briscoe, the Ring of Honor champion, speaks volumes. And Rush and Roderick Strong. And have we seen the Beast Mordos, so whatever his name was, before on the show?
I don't care. I really don't care. But anyway, then Renee Moxleygood was auditioning. You know, they've had Bing Mankiewicz, Bing Crosby.
Bing, bang, boom, yep.
Well, Bing Crosby's manager, you never knew this, in the Catskills was Bing fucking Mankiewicz.
Oh.
Ben Mankiewicz did the thing with Tony Storm. Now they want Maria May to take over the hosting of Inside the Actors Studio because she's stretched out on the chair, and now she's it's like a bunch of goddamn frustrated movie script writers and Broadway play authors are trying to live out their dreams and hopes and anticipations through these 2 female wrestlers. And so Maria May does her dramatic rendition, and then Tony Storm comes out and does a solo dramatic scene and beats herself in the head with a shoe. Brian, what am I missing on the nuances of this? Whatever they had something with Tony Storm, and it flashed by in like the first 3 weeks, and they went so far that it's just ridiculous, and then it's gaga, and then it falls apart. And then Mitsu Arakawa's in the middle of it, and then they're all kissing.
Yeah, where did she go?
Back to Japan, apparently. She was just there to get a little tongue. And to be honest, I would have goddamn liked it better if they had been swapping spit like fucking anteaters, but they were just pecking each other like kissing your sister.
What?
And well, you know the old saying, a draw is like kissing your sister.
I don't know what's going on over there.
Well, there's a lot of draws in Alabama and Mississippi, I'll have you know. So, anyway, that's what that was. It's silliness. It's just silliness at this point.
You know, whether it's the men or the women, you see it more with the women, the hokiness and the bad acting. And there are a lot of people, and I thought this was good compared to some, I mean, this was better than a Mercedes Moné promo or anything.
Oh, yeah, well, we're getting to that.
But there's a lot of people that seem to have practiced a lot of promos in the mirror.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But it's like they practice what to say, not how to say things, or how to, I don't know. No one feels natural or real. Everyone's putting on a performance. Everyone feels like they're putting on a performance.
You used to be told by the veterans in the hotel room or in the car and look in the rearview mirror or whatever, use a pencil for hold a microphone and cut promos and practice promos. It was always, what would you say if you were in this position for real? What would you? These people are writing scenes. They're writing dramatic acting scenes of their characters, and it's just garbage. Anybody who can't fucking come out there and command a room as you yourself, your natural fucking self, instead of making up somebody that you want to be and then making up a bunch of flowery shit that sounds like it's from the Sundance Film Festival, you don't need to be in a wrestling business. Be an actor or an actress. Because they get to do that. Wrestlers don't do that, not good ones.
Well, that's the other problem. If you wanted to be an actor or an actress and do these kind of things, there aren't any roles that do this beyond bad wrestling.
Wrestling is not acting, it's reacting. And speaking of reacting, why did everybody, I heard about this before I saw it, Mercedes McMahon and Dr. Britt Baker did a big angle that I heard at the San Diego Comic-Con. And then when they show it, they shoved each other and a bunch of people started yelling. The fuck nobody came over the goddamn table out into the audience or anything. Is this what passes for a big angle these days, or was this a popcorn fart?
It wasn't a big angle. I don't think you could say that. I don't think anyone treated it like that.
Well, they certainly sent out all the video of, here what Mercedes and Britt Baker did at Comic-Con.
Yeah, the video they used on the TV show was awful.
Yeah, because I bet Mercedes had somebody shoot it with her phone. Right next to the picture of Tony with Shane McMahon. But anyway, they were shoving each other. Britt Baker and Mercedes McMahon are headed for a collision course. As soon as Britt gets off suspension, we'll talk about that in a minute. And then they had Camille with Mercedes McMahon versus Susie Hoosie, whatever the girl's name was. And Camille won in fairly quick fashion. I like Camille. I like her look. But God damn it, now she's with this fucking rotten. She can't talk. She can't act. She can't wrestle. She does a promo standing there next to Camille, and nobody gives a shit because they don't care whether she does talk or does act or does wrestle. They don't care. She's a flop. Has anybody ever gotten more money for a spot off of a run in the WWE, and that's all you've ever done in your life? And apparently it's all she ever will. What is going on with this girl? When are we going to see what's worth the biggest contract supposedly in the history of women's wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem. There's been a push for years treating women's wrestling on an equal plane as male wrestling, men's wrestling, paying them the same, giving them the same amount of TV time. The problem always comes, and whether it's the people that are being pushed, whether it's the push itself, or whether it's the way a wrestling audience that traditionally largely male thinks of women's wrestling, it never helps. It never builds the audience. It never picks up the rating. It never sells tons of merch. It never causes the crowd to wake up. You see stuff on AEW especially women's matches featuring women that are the most pushed women in the company, and the crowd is dead. I don't mean just like you can't hear them. They're not moving. You see them. They're sitting there. And they're not moving and they're not making noise. And it's awkward at times when you like see two people working in front of a bunch of people and no one is making any noise. You just hear the wrestlers running the ropes or making their noises. And to pay Mercedes Moné that amount of money is ridiculous because WWE could justify it because they have the machine to market it.
Yeah.
And make money back with it. With Tony, it's throwing money into the well because you're not going to make that money back on Mercedes Moné. It's an investment into your women's division, I guess you could argue, whether that's smart or not. But Mercedes Moné so far has not lifted the ratings. She's not gotten the reaction that maybe she intended to from the fan base. Has not aided seemingly in the pay-per-views or anything else. She's done a great job of promoting herself in various ways in various places. But it doesn't really seem to do anything to build or add to what's happening. I think that's the fairest. I think that's the fairest way to look at it.
Well, you said at one point, you said a lot of the women's matches, people just sit there, and then they do. But at least they're kind of being polite. They're not really just coming out and hooting at it. They're just saying, okay, this will be over soon. But when Mercedes comes out now, you hear some groans like, oh, we got to put up with this. It's
like, imagine a movie about teenagers and like one of the girls is a bad girl and she becomes a princess. Like just the way she talks, like just, I'm a man.
But then also imagine that the producer ran low on the budget and couldn't hire a good actress.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens at the pay-per-view, her and Britt.
I was rooting for Susie Hoosie there.
Her name, for the record, was Brittany Jade.
Well, Brittany Jade. Seems like they would have changed that because it's too close to Britt Baker. Copyright infringement. That's why there couldn't be any other Shawns or Shanes in the WWF besides Michaels and McMahon.
Do you agree with that, or do you think Vince took that too far?
No, I think it's fucking stupid.
Okay, good.
I think it's fucking stupid because Sean Casey, I booked him up to do some jobs one time in Cincinnati. And they made him change his name because I said, is anybody going to mistake Sean Casey for Shawn Michaels? If so, we ought to just hire Sean Casey. He'll work cheaper. Fuck. Anyway, and Shane Helms couldn't be Shane Helms because of Shane McMahon. That's where Gregory came in. Anyway, the main event of this fiasco was Darby Allin versus Hangnail Page, and they started with 17 minutes left on the air in regulation, and you just know they're going over. And I was like, I don't know if I can take that much of this, but fortunately, about 2 minutes in, I saw everything I needed to see. 2 minutes into this match, Darby Allin had coffin dropped Page off the top of the tunnel onto the stage for a break spot. So fuck this. They're not serious. So I went to the finish. And on the way there, I saw that after they just quit trying to have a match, they spent about 3 or 4 minutes on the floor in front of the referee who was waving his arms and yanking on his dick and do it because they're just out on the floor. Imagine in any other sport, would they say that you were a great basketball player if you could fucking make a goddamn shot from 40 feet every time, but the shot you were making was from the sidelines out of bounds and it still counted?
They wouldn't say you were a great player, no.
Would do. It's they can't have a match following the parameters of pro wrestling. They can just do shit. And so they just give up trying to have a match. And then Darby whipped Page with his belt several times in front of the referee who stood staring at him. Isn't it a disqualification if it's... I saw somebody on Twitter said, well, that's part of his ring outfit. Well, doesn't that mean if I goddamn decide I'm going to wear a fucking sidearm into the ring that I can pull it out and shoot the guy? What the... And then Page, again, he proved that he can't beat a 140-pound man no matter what he does, sort of like Ospreay, not being able to beat a guy who never wins by the skin of his teeth. And then Darby had taken every bump, suffered every goddamn false finish and brutal maneuver, and he was 1 minute away from being on the brink of death, and he came back suddenly at 100 miles per hour and rolled Page up and pinned him 1, 2, 3. What the fuck? So they just switched Page heel, and they're beating him on TV already after he spends 20 minutes trying to beat a guy half his size. I'm not saying Darby Allin should never beat Page. Page is a shits anyway, and he's worthless, so I'd beat him like a goddamn redheaded stepchild. However, is there a need to make your whole program phony by showing that it's fake because this fucking guy can't beat Darby in 25 minutes, but Darby has everything in the world done to him, but it was all fake because he immediately runs as quickly as he can around this fucking guy and rolls him up and beats him. There is no quality control, and I yield the floor to you.
Well, that was AEW Dynamite, no quality control. Let's now talk about ratings control.
Ah, we got the ratings, do we? Well, let's give those ratings right now. Hold on, I've got a pad and a piece of paper right here. I'm ready to take notes.
Well, Jim, let's go to these ratings. AEW Dynamite, Wednesday, July 31st, 2024 on TBS. 8 to 10:05 p.m. On average, did 609,000 viewers.
Oh, boy, howdy. That's down, what, 180,000 or whatever from last week?
Oh, just about. Last week's episode was 786,000. This is the lowest overall average since June 19th, so not that big a period of time. Lowest key demo since June 19th, again, same day.
What happened June 19th?
Wasn't that episode that was abnormally low and no one could figure out why? It was like 500,000 or something.
Well, I could figure out why because I watched it, but all right. But and now they're going to say, well, it's the Olympics. And, we've said with the basketball tournament or whatever else, the all-night gas station, well, they do that every year. They don't do the Olympics every year, but they do them every 4 years. That means that AEW was against them in 2020, right?
That is correct. That's the pandemic, actually. I don't remember.
So I was going to say they didn't do this number during the pandemic or during the last Olympics, but that was the pandemic era, so things may have been skewed. So we'll give them a chance. See what happens. Well, where did they start and where did they finish?
Let me pull that up. Give me a moment. And by the way, as per WrestleTix, this event, Greenville, South Carolina, the Bon Secours Wellness Arena, estimated tickets distributed 2,961 in Greenville, South Carolina.
We used to do that almost every Monday night at the auditorium.
Well, wow, look at this market-to-market comparison. Going back to 2022. August 2022, SmackDown, 6,585. February 23, SmackDown, 9,756. August 5th, 23, Collision, 4,524. Monday Night Raw is there on October 30th, 2023, 7,959. And there again, this past May on the 13th, 8,326. So you can't say the market's dead.
Ooh, and then 2961.
2961.
All righty. Well, sometimes the cake doesn't quite rise.
Well, let's go to the quarterly.
That was profound, wasn't it?
That was somewhat profound. And did Mama Cornette say that? Who said this?
Well, a lot of people. Betty Crocker.
Oh.
She said it.
I guess she was like a mother to a lot of people that spent a lot of time in the kitchen.
Yeah, Duncan Hines, he said it.
Duncan Hines. Any more you want to name?
Well, I'm just
Swiss Miss?
No, I'm just talking about famous cake making people. When your mother made you a cake, would you rather have the Betty Crocker cake or the Duncan Hines cake?
Gee, I don't remember. I mean, I think she made Betty Crocker cakes. I don't know. I never thought too much about it. Obviously, you have. Tell me what the answer is.
I always liked the Duncan Hines better than the Betty Crocker.
Why?
It was better. That's the way Mama Cornette made it.
Oh, once again, we have the quarterly breakdowns.
So Dynamite did 609,000 and a chocolate 3-layer cake. What was the first quarter? Where'd they start?
Well, these were compiled by WrestleNomics, quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. The MJF Will Ospreay live promo and Lance Archer versus Will Ospreay with picture-in-picture ads. 656,000 viewers.
Wow, so even the Big Bang didn't hand it off to him. And by the way, did you notice that Modern Family has gone away at 10 o'clock now? It's Impractical Jokers.
Impractical Jokers, yeah.
It's like we'll just put on a show that we can cut into whenever we feel like it.
It's interesting, too. That show became a big hit on a network that didn't get a lot of attention, and now they're moving it to the bigger network.
Yeah, but if people tune in to see Modern Family, they miss the first 10 minutes, they don't know what the fuck's going on. With Impractical Jokers, it's like a bag of potato chips. You can just dive in and start munching.
Well, let's munch over to segment 2, if that is a thing, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. The continuation of Ospreay versus Archer and the post-match with MJF, Kyle Fletcher, and Don Callis, the Swerve Strickland video, and an ad break, 599,000 viewers.
Jesus Christ, they can't drop any further, or they won't make their average.
Well, we go to quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The Learning Tree backstage promo, is that now the faction too? The faction's the Learning Tree?
I think so. I think it's a big tree, which ought to meet a high wind.
Big roots in the ground.
Big roots.
The start of Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander. The start
needs a fungicide on it also, something for the root rot.
The start of Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander with picture-in-picture ads. 593,000 viewers.
I mean, the good thing is they're not losing as much as they normally do.
Well, we go to quarter 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m. The continuation of Nightingale versus Statlander in the post-match with Stokely Hathaway, Jeff Jarrett and Bryan Danielson's backstage angle, an ad break, and Bryan Danielson's live promo, at least the start of it, 601,000 viewers.
I bet 599, 593, 601. This is bathroom break fluctuation at numbers like that. So they're holding what they got. Is this the most dedicated base viewer that will not watch the Olympics or go to their friend's wedding or whatever the case? They got to be there.
Well, they're there for quarter 5, the big 9 o'clock hour, 9 to 9:15 p.m. Let's find out. The continuation of Danielson's promo and Swerve Strickland's confrontation with him. The Danielson-Jarrett backstage angle, once again. Roderick Strong, Roosh, and the Beast Mortos versus the Conglomeration, if we can call them that. 645,000 viewers.
Well, that's a nice surprise because they normally 9 o'clock lately has not been good to AEW. But they picked up 44,000 people. That's the high point except for the first quarter. So then now they can drop a little bit and still make their average.
And it says a little bit, I guess, about the interest in Danielson. But we go now to quarter 6, 9:15 and 9:30 p.m. The continuation of that 6-man match. The Acclaimed and Billy Gunn backstage promo. An ad break. The Mariah May backstage interview. 584,000 viewers.
Okay, so they lost the 44,000 they picked up and another 17 on top of that.
We go to quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. Tony Storm's ramp angle, if that's what we're calling it. Camille versus Brittany Jade, Mercedes Monet's live promo, an ad break, and the start of Hangman Adam Page versus Darby Allin. 598,000 viewers.
That's a miracle that they got 14,000 back for that, but they're still, they've been, let's see, 3 quarters over 600 and 4 quarters under 600 so far in the program.
Well, we go to quarter 8. I remind you there's an overrun. Quarter 8, 9:45 to 10 p.m. The continuation of Page versus Allen, 2 times of picture-in-picture. 590,000 viewers. 5-minute overrun, 617,000.
Yeah, that 5 minutes they rushed to the television. That's the Impractical Jokers fans. So, again, they kind of kept it. They were, except for the first quarter, 656, they were between 584 and 645 through the whole shebang. So it goes down, but these are the diehards, so there's not as much fluctuation. When they had an extra couple 100,000 people that wanted to give it a chance but didn't need to live and die with it, they would lose more, but their average was a little bit better because it was front-loaded. So pick your poison.
Well, we've also talked about the problem that is the commentary team, how awful they are. They ruin the show. They don't let big moments sound or feel as big as they could. Perhaps you'd like to watch AEW Dynamite from another country with a foreign announce team that you may not know what they say, but they sound strong and convicted in what they are believing and saying.
And convicted?
Well, and they
yes, a group of felons, ladies and gentlemen.
They have convictions, what I meant to say.
Conviction. They've got convictions on their record, but folks, you can watch these criminals, miscreants and malcontents from any country in the world that you want to without leaving your house, because our friends at ExpressVPN, they're like a New Orleans streetwalker. They'll take you around the world and won't charge you much money. Because, folks,
that may not be the best comparison for our very good friends, the very, very nice people over at ExpressVPN.
What, instead of New Orleans, I should have said Chicago?
Really? Chicago like that?
Well, have you been to the right places in Chicago?
Guess not.
They'll take you around the world and drop you off at Wrigley Field for $1.95. But I'll tell you what, folks, going online without ExpressVPN is like not closing the door when you use the bathroom. That means people are peeking when you're leaking and they're yapping about your crapping. Going online without ExpressVPN is like forgetting to mute yourself on one of those Zoom meetings where you're in a meeting with all the people you work with and you stand up and your pants are unzipped and they see that Willie is flapping in the breeze. Going online without ExpressVPN is like checking your bag at the airport without a lock on it. And then you see the baggage thing coming down on the way to the plane, and there's a bunch of people with greasy hands and hairy knuckles looking through your private articles, your underwear, your underpants, your undergarments. Some of it being wrapped around their greasy fingers and sniffed wholeheartedly.
Okay, we get the picture. You don't have to really talk about this too much more.
Going online without ExpressVPN is like getting undressed with your window curtains wide open. And folks, I highly recommend that if you live in a proper neighborhood, because you'll get some traffic. I mean, you can set a goddamn lemonade stand up outside your front.
No.
Certain places.
Let's not encourage any unlicensed peep shows to develop for the
Well, where do you get that peep show
unsuspecting
license?
customer. No, let's not.
I think you walk up to the door and there's a round hole about waist high and you stick your money in there.
No, again.
And folks, again, using the internet without ExpressVPN is like taking a call from your doctor on a train or a bus and you're on speaker and the whole train knows that antibiotic-resistant strain of gonorrhea just won't go away. You don't want to let yourself in for situations like this, folks. You need ExpressVPN to keep you from these embarrassing personal situations. They will hide your dirty, filthy, perverted habits from the world. They will not let people know of the horrible crotch rot that's infected your yeast-ridden body. They will not let you fail, ladies and gentlemen, because they're going to hide you, because you don't deserve to be seen by a gentle population and graceful public. ExpressVPN is going to reroute 100% of your traffic through secure encrypted servers. Every single, and these are fancy servers too. Not just t-shirts and shit. They've got the bow ties on. They're carrying the big fancy trays with one hand. These encrypted servers will hide your nefarious activities online.
No, let's not talk about nefarious activities. The things that you are doing online that some
you don't
internet service providers would maybe that's a way to look at it. It doesn't have to be illicit or whatever you said.
Hey,
complicit.
some internet service providers, as soon as you watch Dumbo Does It Donkey Style on your computer, they're going to send you a letter saying, we want money or we're going to tell the school board that you are watching that donkey porn.
No, I'm pretty sure they'll just call the cops, and I don't think anyone
they only call the cops if you don't pay. Some of these internet service providers, the big names, they only call the cops if you won't pay. But you can't be held over a barrel like this, ladies. That's why you got to get ExpressVPN to make sure that these people, these internet service providers, they don't know what you're doing, where you're going, where you are. You'll be like Tony Khan to them, a complete mystery, a conundrum, an enigma. Fire up the app, click one button, get protected, your phone, your laptop, your tablets. I guess tablets as well as capsules, pill form, whatever kind of pills you take, it'll work on here too. And it's rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. You've been on The Verge before, Brian, haven't you? I was right on the edge a couple of weeks ago, but I managed to talk myself back. But folks, protect your online privacy today by visiting. What are you doing over there? You're on The Verge right now, aren't you? Doing something you shouldn't be doing on Zoom.
That is not what I'm doing. Why would that be the example you use?
ExpressVPN.com/JCE. I'll spell it for you. ExpressVPN.com/JCE. You're going to get an extra 3-month service for free with that code word /JCE. And by the time ExpressVPN gets finished with you, nobody's going to know what country you're in or how to find you, and you'll love it. So enjoy Bolivia, folks, because you're fixing to take a trip. ExpressVPN.com/JCE, 3 months for free. How could you?
How could you?
And in 3 months, money may not be of import to you, but right now you got to save it. So there you go. 3 months for free. ExpressVPN.com/JCE.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
Did you notice the part of the copy that said, please select one of the numbered items?
Well, that wasn't enough. I like to give people their money's worth.
ExpressVPN, you'll get your money's worth with the ExpressVPN. What's that promo code, Jim?
JCE.
All right. Well, we're having a good time here today. And speaking of good times, I don't know if we're really talking about good times with this example, but as we are recording, Jim, word got out in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, I believe.
See, because they didn't have ExpressVPN. That's how shit gets out.
As I was saying, I believe this was broken in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Let me read this to you.
A lot of things in the Wrestling Observer newsletter are broken. But go ahead.
Let me read this to you, and then we'll discuss it further. Britt Baker was suspended for either 1 or 2 weeks and fined by the company's disciplinary committee. Details have been kept pretty quiet. It came from something backstage at the July 17th Dynamite, where Baker allegedly said something about MJF and Alicia Atout or Atout. I'm not exactly sure.
I think Atout.
Well,
Alicia Atout.
We talked about her name a long time ago. You like saying that, but that doesn't mean that's the way to say it.
Well, but look at how it's spelled. A-T-O-U-T, right?
Atout.
Atout. No, okay. How do you say the word coupe, like a 4-door coupe or whatever?
How do you say
like
about?
A Chevy coupe.
How do you say about? How do you spell about?
A boot.
That's
a boot. Lance Storm says it that way.
Oh, well, let's not go based on the way Lance Storm says something.
The Canadians, and hey, the Canadians are closer to being English people than we are, so the English people invented English, so it's a toot.
Well, let me go back to this. Baker allegedly said something about MJF and Alicia, a tout or a toot. MJF's girlfriend heard it and told him, and he confronted Baker. This led to an investigation with
Clouseau!
This led to an investigation with HR talking to people on July 24th, and I believe the disciplinary committee that did the investigation recommended that.
Would it be funny if we found out it's like a guy named HR Cochran? That's the guy that's on the disciplinary committee. That's HR. Harold Richard Cochran.
I don't know if Tony Khan was or wasn't involved in this, and everyone was attempting to keep this under wraps. This all stems from problems in the past.
Everybody was attempting to keep it under wraps. That's why that they leaked it to the Wrestling Observer.
Well, who leaked it, I guess, is the question. Who does this benefit?
Well, somebody would have to be involved in everybody, because everybody's kind of a group thing. So one of them wasn't everybody.
This all stems from problems in the past that weren't addressed, and a committee was put together to settle these things quickly. Most of those we heard from were sympathetic to her in the situation. I'm guessing her is Baker?
Now, who is this? Is Uncle Dave writing
this? This is Dave Meltzer in this week's Observer that came out.
So we most of the people we know he talks to are on the elite bandwagon. So does that mean that's those same people? They're sympathetic to her. That doesn't really validate much, because they're sympathetic to a lot of fucking people they're friends with.
Well, again, and this is at a time where AEW needs as much positive publicity as possible. They don't need infighting, let alone infighting going public. The story was leaked. And again, you say leak and it sounds like, Deep Throat's in a parking lot. It's, hey, Dave, you got to hear this shit. Someone did that. And you have to ask yourself who it benefits this coming out. I will say there are additional details that we've heard that add some context to this. And I also think for context based on things we've heard now and in the past from people, it's not like the AEW women's locker room has always been a happy place for everyone, a welcoming place for everyone.
Sunshine, lollipops, rainbows, and waterfalls.
Remember, Lufisto got hammered because she had the audacity to tell the truth about what she saw there when she was there.
Bunch of backstabbing and two-facedness. And some of those people can't be two-faced. If they were, they wouldn't be wearing the one they've got on now. But she said that, and also remember the old Thunder Rosa.
Speaking of two faces, she paints half her face.
Well, there you go.
See?
Prove my point. And they've been saying the same thing, but they were the outliers because, it can't be that way because this is all friends wrestling. For the fact that half of these people got their jobs because of who they're friends with, it doesn't seem like anybody in that locker room gets along. And if Britt Baker, who is not only one of their originals, but is in the big program where they might be able to get $1 out of Mercedes Moan indirectly because she's against Britt Baker, they got to suspend her and fine her because of something that she said. There couldn't have been any question about whether she was guilty or not. If they do that to her, she would be one of the people that could almost get away with anything, one would think. So And again, what the now? If she's saying things that are reported back to MJF, what is she? Is she now the producer backstage? She's allowed to critique other people that she's not involved with, or is she just running her mouth in a social circle, or what's going on back there?
Well, the word is, from talking to people in the company, and a lot of people witnessed a lot of things here, so there's plenty of people to talk to. The word is, as crazy as it sounds, she may have been putting down or openly critiquing, let's say, MJF versus Ospreay as it was happening.
Oh, here's what they ought to be doing from Britt Baker, huh?
Or they're getting too much time.
You know, I've noticed every time you tease an hour Broadway, it's generally a long match.
And whatever was said, purportedly, Alicia a tout or a toot, whatever it may be, let MJF, who it turns out is her boyfriend, apparently, know what happened. But from what
at least they're friends.
From what we've heard from sources, Ospreay was the one who got to her first and let her have it. Who the hell is she to critique the match?
Well, I saw that reported that Ospreay talked. It was phrased that Ospreay even talked to her. It wasn't like you couldn't tell whether Ospreay talked to her or Ospreay gave her a talking to, but he was involved also.
Apparently, Britt Baker, there was some sort of incident with her and at least Alicia a tout.
A toot.
If not MJF also, but what we had heard was she got in Alicia a tout's face and screamed, "Get out of my locker room." And again, you think about some of the previous stories we've heard, some that have been on air, some not, about the AEW women's locker room, Britt Baker in the locker room. It's interesting. And again, HR, whoever that may be and whatever that constitutes an AEW, a week later interviews everyone. And there were, like I said, there were a lot of people. Trust me, there were a lot of people that witnessed a lot of things here. And Britt Baker ended up suspended and fined. And again, with AEW, you don't even know what that means. I mean, people get suspended for months at a time and still get paid and have a great time.
That's the thing, is they're bringing her back for Wembley because it's a big match. So she's suspended for 2 weeks, but nobody said suspended without pay. So you get to stay home and make the same money as if you'd have gone. So and she wrestles 8 times a year to begin with. So the fine might be an issue, but I think the suspension, and then you can kind of look at it like, well, they fined me, but I get the next 2 weeks off to fucking work on my tan. Is the fine, what is the fine? Is the amount revealed? We
have no idea.
What is it in comparison to her weekly salary? Is she still, if her weekly salary, and I'm just pulling numbers for even mathematics sake, if her weekly salary is $7,000 a week and she gets fined $10,000, then she's still making $4,000 for 2 weeks for doing dick all of nothing. So then who's really being penalized here?
Like, imagine having your grouchy aunt come over for a holiday and she starts criticizing Steamboat versus Flair.
Aunt Lola was never grouchy. I'm sure she would have found something good to say. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty to criticize on that show. But for MJF and Ospreay to be the thing that she decides to go to war over, as JR would say, to die on that hill, what the fuck? It's better than anything else that's on that program, including your matches, Britt, because let's face it, she looks good and she got the heel promo down, and then she became a babyface, and now as long as she's talking about her real-life medical issues, she's a very captivating speaker, but otherwise, she looks great, she wrestles, and they like her because she's been there a while. And we don't see too much of her because she goes away so often that we don't get tired of her.
What was your point?
Well, that was my point.
Was that your point?
My point is that, she's getting by on, she ain't that good a wrestler. She looks pretty good, and Tony likes her, and she's been there a while. And they don't make her go out and do stupid things over and over like they do everybody else. She goes away for long stretches where you don't get sick of her, and then she comes back, and there you go. So she's in a pretty good position. If I were her, I would shut my pie hole.
If it's true, and again, we heard it, and there was more than one witness. There were a lot of people. If she said, "Get out of my locker room," what does that tell you?
Well, dentists make a lot of money. And she's probably at least made Tony a down payment on the deed to the locker room. So that way she can decide who comes and who goes. I mean, it's fucking... Again, this is Saved by the Bell, not only on television, but in the locker room, behind the scenes. I've never seen anything like this in the wrestling promotions I have been in, where there were manipulations behind the scenes and ill feelings amongst top major players in the company, etc. It was usually over important shit and done fairly well. It wasn't like a bunch of kids just goddamn, ranting at recess because the teacher left the room.
And, whatever you want to say about that match, they did something AEW doesn't do. They held the audience all the way through it. It was pretty remarkable when you looked at the numbers. It didn't have a giant number, but they didn't lose anyone. They held the audience.
And it set up the most important match on the Wembley Stadium card. So, yeah, I would say that piece of business was probably the best thing they did last little while. But, again, I don't know the personal dynamics of whether one would have thought that Britt might be friendly to MJF, since MJF and Adam Cole were bros and bosom buddies and all that stuff. But, maybe that's what led Adam Cole to turn on MJF. His mind was poisoned by his girlfriend.
Maybe she's the devil.
She the devil. With a blue dress on, baby.
Well,
devil.
Hey, one last thing about all this. If you're Tony Khan, and again, you're negotiating a TV deal, you have Wembley coming up, right now you need positive stories. You don't need stories about in-house drama. That's been the story of AEW from the beginning. It was suppressed for a while, and then once it started coming out, it never stopped. Even when Punk left, it never stopped. Are you happy about this getting out right now?
Well, only if I intend to have Britt Baker and or MJF, one of the other front face lock the other person in the locker room at Wembley or backstage so we can catch it on security camera and show that. Otherwise, no, it's another example of a bunch of unprofessional dipshits and minor childish arguments and personalities being allowed to run wild because Tony doesn't have any control over anything. And again, you're suspended and you're fined, and the first thing they do, oh, hey, Uncle Dave, let me tell you what happened here. And it doesn't register because it's not a real punishment. Wrestlers do not feel punished when they are sent home and told not to take bumps and not to get on airplanes and not to make trips and not to have to go to work. Oh, by the way, you're going to get paid. Even if you're fined, if you're coming out with anything for that period of time, and it's 2 weeks because she knows they can't leave her off of Wembley. So what?
Yeah, really, what's that? That's another thing, too. Would the suspension be the same? Would everything be the same if Wembley and the match with Mercedes Moné wasn't around the corner?
Well, maybe not. They may say, oh, we can suspend you for a month because nothing's coming up important until next month. Or they may say, oh, gosh, we don't want Britt to be mad at us, too. So we can't be too strict.
If you're Tony Khan and you have access to all the numbers we talk about and stuff we don't know, but you know who moves numbers. You know who sells merch when he's a babyface or sells tickets when he's a heel. Do you want MJF having to deal with drama and getting pissed off at AEW?
No, you don't even need to look at goddamn paperwork. You can use your own two eyes, and if you have any sense at all about professional wrestling, MJF and Britt Baker, there's no goddamn comparison whatsoever in terms of star power or value to the company. I apologize to Britt, who I've never met, not trying to insult you, but seriously? MJF is one of the two or three, depending on which way the wind blows and what your favorite things are, one of the two or three biggest stars in the company, and Britt Baker is one of the top girls, even though she doesn't get paid more than Mercedes. That's way far apart. You don't need to look up paperwork. You don't need to look up statistics. If Britt Baker is knocking MJF in some kind of way, and MJF hears about it, is not happy about it, besides going and telling her to shut her fucking yap, I would go, if I was MJF, and tell Tony, hey, this fucking chickadee keeps running her goddamn dick licker about me. I may go home again with another injury. Fix this shit. I don't have time for high school drama. I'm not going to natter back and forth with a goddamn girl wrestler on the card when I'm trying to main event your fucking stadium show.
What would Ric Flair have said in 1987? He came in the back and one of his boys came up to him and said, yo, Misty Blue has been tearing down your match. Misty Blue is just talking all sorts of shit about you and Barry Windham out there.
He would have gone over there and offered her a ride on Space Mountain and to change her mind, and probably helicopter and
again,
helicoptered her.
That may not be the answer. That wasn't, I did not intend for that to be the answer.
Well, it would have worked. It would have worked, though.
No.
I have a feeling that she would have bought 2 tickets for that ride. But no, it's ridiculous. Yes, no, Misty Blue would have been, if Dusty Rhodes, the booker, heard Misty Blue telling everybody what Ric Flair ought to be doing different, Dusty Rhodes would have said, that's a good idea. Why don't you go out in the parking lot and tell some other people all about it? Because you ain't staying in here.
And one other thing, I guess, to look at this from the other perspective, if there's a women's locker room or a men's locker room, whatever it may be, and someone is openly critiquing the significant other of someone in there, do they have an obligation to say nothing to that person, or do they have an obligation to let that person know what the hell's going on?
Well, and here's where it gets also a little dodgy, is that in the entire history of wrestling, unless somebody was working as their husband's valet, you didn't have anybody's significant other in the locker room, so you could make all the smart-ass comments you wanted to make. And guys would roast each other, sometimes in a funny way, sometimes just for something to do, and sometimes because they were really mad or jealous or whatever. But you were just talking in front of the guy's wife or girlfriend or whatever because they weren't in the room. So now you got to watch out for that. Yes, because some of the guys may go and stooge on you just to stir shit up, to have some fun, see what's going to happen. But most of the time, they'll just laugh along with it or agree or nod their head or whatever and go on. But you can't expect somebody's girlfriend to, yeah, so-and-so was putting a mouth on you, but I'm not going to tell you what they said. So what's
Can you imagine someone in the back for like Flair versus Windham? Oh, they're going too long. Why are they going so long? I could use this time. Why are they in there so long?
Oh, my God.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what else
I hope that maybe Britt can use this to further study advanced root canals and all the time she's going to have free.
At Dr. Miglano Institute.
I took a sip and you almost caused an issue.
Well, Jim, speaking of issues, our final topic here this week, and we apologize for not hitting a lot of questions or other fun bells and whistles, but it's been a long week without going into too much detail, including a spectacular performance, may not be the word, display by Stephen P. New in a deposition, the more you'll hear about in English.
At some point.
In the future, yes. Words are hard right now, folks.
As soon as we graduate this class that we're taking in the English language, we'll tell you. But I'll tell you, have you ever seen, ladies and gentlemen out there, the Royal You, Stephen P. New cross-examine somebody? Boy, I'll tell you what, it's like he's a pit bull and you're wearing milk bone underwear. He will make you twitch. He will make you cry. He will make you run screaming into the streets and take a walk around the block because he is a pit bull. He is a guy that's going to dig in and he's going to rip and tear at the facts until they're all his. And the true story has come out.
Oh, man.
That's the kind of litigator he is. That's the kind of attorney he is. And he is on the side of the little guy. Actually, I've said that before and I'm wrong. Stephen is not just on the side of the little guy. If you're over 6'3", if you're in the right, he's on your side too. Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com. 877-50-STEVE. As I said, the number to call if you want to get to the bottom of something. If you want somebody to be cross-examined and have all of their information, it's like a Vulcan mind meld. But Stephen P. New sucks all the information out of a perpetrator, an instigator, a corrupt individual who has stolen or robbed or cheated or caused harm. If you have a person like that in your life, then you need Stephen P. New because he'll break that son of a gun down and leave him shivering.
Oh, my God.
Like he's at the bottom of Mount Everest with his skivvies on.
I had the good fortune of having seen Stephen P. New in action, and I could say he is the kind of lawyer that leaves a man trembling, twitching, nervous tics, snapping their neck back and forth, gobbling large amounts of chocolate. Bizarre behavior.
Bizarre behavior. He makes him diabetic.
Sweat and tears. There's a lot going on. A lot we're going to be talking about in the future,
As a matter of fact, blood, sweat, and tears, too.
Well,
and that spinning wheel goes round and round until it stops on pay you the money.
That's right.
Stephen P. New, newlawoffice.com, 877-50-STEVE for your legal needs.
Well, let me take this down. I had the music ready to go, and then you just jumped in. So
I just did. I couldn't wait.
You ran on the street like someone I know. You ripped off your jacket. You stormed around the corner.
Just begin walking somewhere.
Some old lady chasing after you saying, calm down, calm down. It'll be okay.
But it won't be okay because Stephen P. New is on your tail, motherfucker, and this is only round one of many more to come.
Speaking of potential issues, one last story, as I was saying before we end this week's episode. We'll have more fun next week and a big action-packed episode of The Experience with SummerSlam and so much more. But Jim, a story that a ton of listeners have been sending over and apparently is getting coverage in other places off the original article. It's a long article here. I have it from military.com. That sounds official.
And boy, it's about as serious as a heart attack. Military.com. Don't go in there unless you're prepared.
From military.com, the headline under military news by Steve Benyon. The Army bet $11 million on The Rock and UFL ginning up enlistments. It may have actually hurt recruitment efforts. The Army is seemingly having buyer's remorse after an $11 million marketing deal with the United Football League and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. The high-dollar, high-profile deal likely didn't lead to a single new Army recruit and may possibly have had a negative impact on finding new enlistments.
As soon as the commercial started airing, people started going AWOL.
Internal documents and emails reviewed by military.com show the service may even seek to get some of its money back. The Army inked the deal earlier this year with the UFL, the upstart minor league alternative to the NFL, that had an inaugural season from March through June with a disappointing debut. More importantly, the deal included Johnson, a global superstar.
Now you doesn't gotta call him Johnson.
An owner of the league who was supposed to serve as a pseudo-brand ambassador for the Army. Let me say that again. Like he's covert. A pseudo-brand ambassador for the Army.
Pseudo. Oh.
That's studio, but anyway. Though the service said he did not fulfill his end of the bargain. to publish a specific number of service-related posts on his social media accounts. The news comes as the Army is in the midst of a historic recruiting crisis that has been partially worsened by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. No, by the service struggling to navigate modern marketing trends. Like giving $11 million to Dwayne Johnson thinking anyone was going to go, man, The Rock wasn't in the Army. He thinks I should do it. That's a great fucking idea.
Well, no, here's the thing. It's not the first time that an armed service branch has worked with a wrestling company, because they figure, and rightfully so, there's a lot of young 18 to 25 or whatever, age they're looking for, men that want to play with guns and or get away from goddamn their family or whatever reason you might want to sign up to get shot at. And it works.
There are patriotic heroes, and there are people who just want to help their country and defend their country. And
we
should be grateful for them.
And there's just a ton of great people in the world, and just only a very few skeevy ones that only want to fucking be in it for themselves and or fondle weapons. But nevertheless, the point is, it's worked in the past. How do you spend that much money? How do you run that kind of advertising campaign and not get one single person to sign up? They've got to have a way to verify this. Somewhat like a fucking, what's that promo code, Jim? Did they say, well, when you go in to sign up, say The Rock sent me?
Well, according to let me continue on here. It goes into the recruiting crisis. The UFL deal was so catastrophic, it led to a projected loss of 38 enlistments. An internal review of the plan shows. So 38 less people signed up because of it.
Anyway, we wanted to do it, but oh, fuck no. The UFL? No, oh, fuck.
I saw The Rock tweet out about it, but I already saw that in and out thing, so I just didn't trust him. I didn't want to sign up.
Well, also, but did you see somewhere they wrote, I saw on one account of this, that they were ascribing of it, like The Rock was supposed to tweet this information on his Twitter account like a half a dozen times, and they were saying that was going to be worth $1 million a tweet?
Part of the allure of the deal was Johnson's social media reach, and an agreement that he would tout, T-O-U-T, in terms of a toot versus a tout, ladies and gentlemen.
Uh-huh.
He would tout the Army.
Maybe he was tooting his own horn.
A titan on social media, Johnson has 396 million followers on Instagram. The Army valued each...
Can that possibly be real?
No. The Army valued each social media post at $1 million. Service documents show, and it was expecting 5 of them, but Johnson did not fulfill his end of the deal, making only 2 of the 5 social media posts Army documents show. Johnson says he was in the gym. No,
how hard is it? Hey, these dipshits are giving you $1 million to tweet something. How hard is it to tweet it?
In total, the Army wants to recoup $6 million from the UFL, documents show. However, it was unclear how the service came up with that figure.
It's unclear how the service came up with the figures that they gave to him.
No comment from the UFL, and Johnson's publicist did not respond to a request for comment.
Gerwitz?
He was carrying a bucket of piss.
Oh, he didn't have a free hand, because that's a heavy bucket.
It's a lot of piss.
A lot of piss there. A lot of urine. This one's mine, and this one's urine.
It was a 2-hander.
Yeah, but that's what she said. But now, so the point is, I'm willing to agree that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is a big movie star, but I don't give a fuck who you are in this world. Mahatma Gandhi, whoever the fuck. Just tweeting something is not worth $1 million, and if these people paid it, I think it's their fault. But
well, and actually on that topic here, from the beginning, Army staff warned against a partnership with the UFL, or the XFL, or the USFL, two minor league football leagues that would eventually form the UFL through a merger. Service officials said the financial burden was way too high and viewership way too low. And even the most optimistic estimation showed the partnership would not yield many recruits. One senior Army marketing official, in an interview with Military.com, said the deal echoed the National Guard's $88 million NASCAR sponsorship that reportedly didn't lead to a single new soldier joining the ranks. But the UFL partnership was ultimately pushed through directly by General Randy George, the Army Chief of Staff, according to an email between him and senior staff, reviewed by Military.com.
Is he the son of Major Duke George?
Johnson hasn't posted anything on his Instagram related to the Army since April. One post mostly featured photos of him with generals, including a photo of him hugging George. Another was clips of his tour of Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Maryland. That's good to know. His visit to the fucking hospital was all for $1 million. In terms of The Rock, this is a quote, in terms of The Rock, it's unfortunate he was pulled away at a time when we expected him to be present with us to create content for his social media channels, said Colonel Dave Butler, a spokesman for George.
It's George's fault. You know, he could have had a picture taken with General Electric, General Mills, General Motors. He picks General George.
But we're working with the UFL to rebalance the contract. The Rock remains a good partner to the Army. And then we have, it says here, one internal Army document pointed out the inexperienced UFL staff causing numerous breakdowns in communication. Here's a quote. UFL lack of experience liaising between brand and networks was very apparent during planning and created a significant amount of additional work. So we could stop there. On the strength of Dwayne Johnson's star power, and again, the way he's, it's like one of those things where the way you're perceived by people in high positions who may not know what's happening on the street, and the way kids or young people or people who pay attention see you are two different things. I call them the male J-Lo for a reason. There's a disconnect between how popular you are told that they are and how popular they seemingly really are. And they got this deal on the strength of The Rock. He couldn't even put out the tweets for, what the hell is that? What is this? And again, every other thing we've heard about with him is about disorganization with his staff. And again, now you're hearing about it with this UFO.
Wait, that's so preposterous, because if they're paying you all that money to tweet something, why get your sponsor, these people, the Army, especially the ones with cannons, why get them upset when you could just be tweeting something? Because then if you held up your end of the bargain and did everything you're supposed to do, and they give you $11 million and they don't get shit, well, then they've really got no reason to bitch because they made a goddamn deal. But now they've got a reason to bitch because you didn't even hold up the deal that they got nothing out of. So it's not like 4 more tweets or whatever would have made any difference, obviously. But at least you as the perpetrator of this scam could say, my hands are clean. I did what you paid me to do. You shouldn't have made this deal if you didn't like it. But now it's like, what the fuck? And $11 million. How many recruits would you need to get would they feel was worthwhile for $11 million?
See, the thing is, you want to get mad because it's our tax dollars being just thrown around and played with. So on one hand, you're mad, and then other people are like, well, it's only a drop in the bucket for the Army. They've got billions to put. Well, that doesn't make it any better. This is a waste of money in every way, and any reasonable person would have seen that. It's like a favor almost. Because otherwise, how would you ever think this would work? And the other thing is, they said he did 2 out of the 5 tweets he was supposed to do. So that's $1 million a tweet. The first one was pictures of him hugging generals. That's $1 million. The second one, again, let me go back to this.
Join the army and you can have a homosexual relationship with one of our generals.
Well, again, I don't know if that's exactly what they're saying there, but that is allowed in the army. Well, actually, I don't know if that's allowed. I
think it's up to the general in question.
Well, no, I don't think it's up to the general because there's a chain of command and there's a power.
Well, who's higher than the general?
Well, listen, let's get back
and
to
he's generally high when he's having the homosexual relations.
There's no general having homosexual relations. You don't have to worry about that, ladies and gentlemen.
Bring it up then.
I didn't. You just said that. I said nothing of the sort.
Well, it's not the way I heard it, but go ahead.
What was I saying?
I don't know.
God damn it. Why do you do this to me?
You were talking about General George being gay for some reason.
I did not say that. You said that. And I don't even know if that's if General George is one of the hugging generals. So I don't know about that. Well, actually, it did say he did hug George. And well, look, George may like the hug.
He hugged him and squeezed him and called him George.
Well, that was a $1 million hug. The second one is the one that, to me, if it is what it sounds like, is offensive. He went to the military hospital for a visit. I always joke about him. I joke about the truth. I joke about him giving people gifts and filming it. The
camera is always there at the moment of conception.
Yeah. There's nothing he does that's nice, that's not that. And at times it's almost set up. Remember, he went back to the place where, whatever it was, he stole a Snickers bar when he was like...
Yeah.
And like he had someone behind the counter filming it or whatever it was. Like it was an unnatural place for someone to be filming this thing for this clearly set up scene. At least in his eyes. Who knows if anyone else knew what was happening. So that means he got $1 million to go to Walter Reed Medical Center, I don't have it in front of me, medical hospital.
Walter Reed Hospital.
Walter Reed Hospital.
Called.
$1 million to go there. And I would guess the intention is to cheer up the injured troops, these people who defended our country, who were injured or hurt from doing that. But if you treat it like it's just something you're doing for $1 million, not only is that kind of scummy, but secondly, it makes you wonder who else is doing that. Not just in wrestling, obviously, but just whenever you see any celebrity filming themselves going to a military hospital, are they being paid by the government to do that? Or are they doing that on their own just as a good person?
Well, and then also, if it's $1 million is what it takes to get you to go to Walter Reed, maybe that's because he's eaten at the commissary and he knew what he was in for. But you're going to a hospital to see, as you said, wounded people and blah, blah, blah. It would seem like there would be some element of you would have to disclose, hey, this is part of a sponsorship I'm doing or whatever. I'm working with the Army, so I thought I'd come by. You don't have to say you were being paid specifically to go to the hospital. But it's not like, I was wandering by, and they said I could come in. No, you're working with the Army. It's a business deal. We need to know some of this. Just to me.
You know what you should do? Put up a tweet or an Instagram thing. Hi, I'm Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Do you want to look like this? Well, you're never going to be drug tested in the new Army. You can go over there and do whatever the fuck you want. You may be saying, Dwayne Johnson, you never served in the military. Who the fuck are you to tell me I should join the Army? And I say you're right. Take out that aggression for Uncle Sam. If you smell what $11 million is cooking.
If you smell what $11 million has bought me.
Have you met General Hiram? Well, again, I said it. Earlier in this year, people were really getting on me because I was telling the truth about what was going on with The Rock.
You know what? This stuff is starting to come out and is looking more and more in your favor.
Listen, he's lying about burgers. He's lying about the military. What the fuck is happening with this guy?
And he's revamping, let's see, April, May, he's revamping the WrestleMania documentary so it comes out 3 months later instead of the next week. Because they had to figure out a way to make it look like he invented, the Garden of Eden or whatever.
I told you this was coming.
He's not doing himself any favors, is he? Amazing talent. But goddamn, he's really huffing his own fucking methane.
Well, we will give up the methane for the day And Jim, as I said, we will return to normal form next week. But like I said, it was a very, very long day watching Stephen P. New in action, causing action, including running, sweating, ticks.
And by the way, I think that at the end of the day, you'll have to agree that he had that witness so confused that he couldn't say that it was for sure you wearing that raincoat and nothing else in that park.
Wait, what?
I'm just saying Stephen's so good at what he does.
That wasn't the case. First of all, I didn't know you knew about that case. But that wasn't the case, no.
Oh, I thought you were there. You were watching the cross-examination of the old blind woman that was the witness.
The old blind woman, that was the
witness. the one that Flair wooed in her face.
Oh, come on. You know, who knew there were going to be two? Did you see that AEW ended their deal with Woo Energy? Like, they announced like a multi-year big deal that would include Ric Flair being on TV, paid for by them. Like, it's over now, apparently.
He was on 3 times, and it lasted like 4 months or whatever. And yeah, boom, and they pulled everything. Did the energy drink go under or belly up or bubble up or whatever energy drinks do? Or because there was never any explanation, well, we kind of don't want you to drink this anymore.
It's like whatever the newest item in the bodega is, there's like a version of it with Ric Flair sponsoring it that pops up every few years. Whatever that is, a calling card, whatever it may be, there's going to be like a Ric Flair version of it that pops up for 6 months and it disappears forever.
Well, you heard years ago when they started the North Carolina lottery, Flair was actually a spokesman. He did one of the commercials, and the joke amongst the boys was that if you buy a North Carolina lottery ticket, one of the ones that Flair's selling, every ticket is guaranteed to win $5,000. But everyone costs $10,000. So well, you got that going for you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we're going to end the drive-thru on a happy note. Where's old trusty, old faithful?
Old faithful?
Where's fuck? This is not. Oh, there it is. I was about to take an off-brand one. All right. Another fun day.
Jesus Christ.
Another fun day. Hey, Jim, now that you've gotten to see the Big Bubba Rogers action figures that we talked about on the last show, what do you think?
I love them, especially the of course, the white shirt. That's how I knew it. But also the fact that he has the more, one of the heads with the more Bubba flousy hair and instead of the more tightly cropped Big Boss Man hair. I like that ability to choose.
And again, we talked about it when we did the last retro figure segment. What do you think of the blue shirt?
It's bizarre because it kind of looks like, I mean, it's got to be a nod to the Boss Man outfit because now I remember Bubba, I said he always wore white. He wore black shirts sometimes.
In the early days, you mean?
Yeah, but not blue. So there you go. But as a matter of fact, he was buying all these suits at the big and tall man's shop, obviously, because he was 6'4" and 350 or whatever the fuck. But he ended up having to have, because when he was wrestling in those street clothes, God damn, at the end of a match with Ronnie Garvin, it was hard for him to keep his heat visually with the people because he looked like he'd goddamn been run over by charging bulls. His shirt was all untucked and the sweat stains out of the armpits and the fucking legs of the pants were hiked up. So to keep more together and not look so unkempt, he started taking the dress shirts and having a lady sew buttons and a tail on them where he could bring it through his crotch underneath his pants and button it so his shirt tail wouldn't come out. Like
really
like a regular wrestling top, but with the dress shirt. That helped him stay together better.
Did Bubba Rogers and Big Boss Man collectively pull off wrestling in actual clothes better than almost anyone? Like, it didn't seem ridiculous with him.
No, I think so because, well, the way he started, Boss Man still was a kind of a policeman's uniform, but Bubba was just, the inspiration was any goddamn, 60s TV show gangster in the suit and the tie and the carnation and the sunglasses, but they're going to fucking whack you with the the machine gun they carry in their violin case. That's why we used the Peter Gunn theme for Bubba's entrance music. Because Dusty, just Kay said he's Big Bubba Rogers, baby. He's your bodyguard from Louisville, Kentucky. So we's okay, and put him in a suit, and that's the guidance we got. So then we said, okay, well, what music would fit it? Peter Gunn. And and a lot of people didn't even know at that point what it was, but it sounded right? And we just made it, like a fucking gangster movie. And with him wrestling in his suit, it made him stand apart because guys weren't doing that in those days. And he didn't look like a wrestler. He looked like this big, tough guy that no wrestling fan had ever heard of because he wasn't a wrestler. But he was my bodyguard, and suddenly I'm throwing him into the ring. And because his style was so different, and the way that he did things in the ring and the way he moved in the ring was so different, he didn't look like a wrestler, but not in a bad way. He didn't look like a wrestler in terms of the match he was having. He looked like a big 6 foot, 350-pound guy fighting somebody who was trying to wrestle him. And since he'd only had 12 matches and very little training before he got the gimmick, he was doing that. He was figuring it out on his own. And sometimes he'd just start taking bumps or doing moves that weren't technically, classically correct in wrestling, but it worked for him because he was so quick and so agile, and it was just a whole different way of doing things. So that's why I think he stood apart from all the other guys they tried to push when they were green. Bubba became a bigger star quicker than almost anybody. He was like an American Nikita Koloff.
And again, after a match or in a match, whichever character he was, Big Boss Man or Big Bubba Rogers, let's leave the Guardian Angel out of this.
Yeah.
His shirt would get sweaty. It would get opened up more. You'd see his chest like it was a guy in a fight, like you said.
Yeah.
And he pulled it off. A lot of people, you see a lot of people wearing clothes in the ring nowadays. They don't pull it off. He made it work.
Also, Bubba was a free perspirer. Oh, my God. And we'd go to spot shows in the summertime in the Carolinas. It'd be 100 degrees outside, high humidity. And it'd be we're both wearing suits. And it'd be a contest between two of us as which one of us looked like you'd turned a bucket of water over our head by the time we got back to the locker room.
How did he do his laundry?
Well, he took it home and fucking did it.
He took it home? I mean, when you guys were on the road. I mean, how many suits did he have?
Well, no, think about this. In the Carolinas, we were driving to a lot of the shows, and if we did go, fly for the weekend, I mean, I was wearing a different shirt every night. I'd reuse pants a couple times on a 5 or 6 day trip and try to get 2 or 3 wearings out of a jacket. Since he was taking the jacket off, that was the problematic part. He was taking that off to wrestle. You just throw several things in a suit bag. When you get home, pop them over by the dry cleaners. That's what I always do. I assume that's what he did. I didn't follow him. He might have had Angie do it, his wife, take it to the dry cleaners. Nobody's ever asked that question before.
Well, thank you very much. And speaking of...
It wasn't a compliment. It was just a statement.
I'll take it as a compliment. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very little. You're welcome even less.
Well, with that... This is the outro of the program, ladies and gentlemen. And, of course, we'll be back on The Experience, SummerSlam, whatever I just said there.
SummerSlam, whoa.
SummerSlam, as well as biographies of Ted DiBiase and Paul Heyman, as well as SmackDown, as well as whoever in AEW gets suspended next, wherever you find your favorite podcast. And, of course, next week back here on the Drive Thru. He's on Twitter at @TheJimCornette. I'm on Twitter at GreatBrianLast. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast, 605pod.com, and of course the Wrestling News every day wherever you find your favorite podcast, or go to thewrestlingnews.com. Cornette's Collectibles, JimCornette.com. What's going on, Jim?
Big deals going on at JimCornette.com, including action figures, tag team sets, photos, DVDs, books, and more. And I'm leaning over here. What's the worth? The 1st of August. By the time that the middle of August rolls around, a huge new announcement on some wonderful things you're going to be able to purchase for your very own that have never been seen before.
All right, well, we'll see what that is at JimCornette.com. And of course, the drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen Pinu, 888-692. Is that it? 888-8, no, it's not it. 877-50-STEVE. I still remember the old number. That's how successful that campaign was. 877-50-STEVE.
He's got a new number now, and it's a new day, and he will depose you, and you won't be able to oppose him.
That's right. It could be in St. Louis. It could be in California. It could be wherever you wish. Stephen Pinu is the man for you. Get even with Stephen, newlawoffice.com. But until in a few days on The Experience, and next week right back here on the Drive-Thru for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. We have been receiving new songs. They're going to be played starting next week. Tally-ho!